Kwekwe, greetings. Kwekwe is Algonquian for hello. Algonquian is the original language of the Eastern Woodland Indians and the Eastern Woodland area. When we say that, this is not to disrespect other linguistic groups of Indians, but it is to tie us together and let us see that our most ancient language as East Woodland Indians was Algonquian. And so the other later languages now we're starting to break up into more easily digestible, colonizable chunks, starting with the civilized tribes and the Iroquois. And what we're saying is the Iroquois and the five civilized tribes once spoke Algonquin. Okay, we're just going with the most logical explanation. Why? Because we know as Indians, we've been here for forever, right? So, as I always say, the further back you go, the more authentic the Indian will be, the more a one people we will be. It is only during the creations of the five civilized tribes and the break off of the Iroquois that we start to, have more of a colonizer narrative. So today, hopefully, we'll get to what we have. And man, we just got to look at some things as well. We got a chance to check out Dane Calloway's most recent video. Uh, as I said before, Dane is phenomenal. Uh, what happened was, I think I was watching his most recent video, which was good. And I think what happened is it started playing an older video. Sometimes lately, if you don't turn it off, YouTube just starts, playing videos that you didn't intend to watch. And if you don't pay attention, you'll think it's the same video. So what happened is I think I was listening to his latest video, and then it started playing a previous video where I heard something that is not often said. So we're going to look at that. In fact, I think it's the first screenshot we're going to look at, because what I would like is for Indians to really, the ones who want to, right? Where can we begin to come together and go to being the Indians not taxed that we're supposed to be? Now, some Indians don't want to do that, right? And you'll see channels where Indians are saying, we are citizens. And the thing with that is, no, we're not supposed to be, but the important thing is it's not the narratives that Indians are pushing. As we said, there's federally speaking, there's two types of Indians, but among Indians, there may be even more. Like, we have Indians who insist on being citizens. And if that works for them, we must let them do that. But we still must get the message out, because, yes, these Indians are speaking and they're saying, we are American Indians and citizens. And, you got to watch out when you're two things. As we said, in this system, when you have to be two things, the government is going with the worst of the two. And between the two, we've already experienced being citizens, right? Indians, we know what that's about. It's not good, is it? So if we think becoming Indian citizens is better, think again, Indians. I invite you to think again. It's not better. It's this system is going to go with the worst of the two, or it's going to meld the two together, and basically you're going to have a nothing burger. You're going to have the worst of Indian rights, which is called federal Indian law, and you're going to have we know what's wrong with being a citizen, don't we? Don't we, Indians? We know what's wrong with being. We've had that experience, and it's where we are today, isn't it? We're 14th Amendment citizens, the worst of the two citizens, right? Because there's two types of citizens. There's a federal citizen and there's a state citizen. You're both of them, but you're being treated as the worst of the two. And the worst of the two is the 14th Amendment citizen. The 14th Amendment citizen came in last place after the state citizen. The 14th Amendment federal citizen came way after the original state citizen. Apologies. So there we have another example of being, again, well, it's one of the examples we talked about. Two things, but one of them is dominating the other. Two, it has no effect. Now, the best of the two of those is the state citizen. This is what I learn every day from folks like Glenn Fern. Now, see, you got to go outside of the Indian community to get real information about the two different citizenships. In Indian country, Indians don't think there's a difference, apparently, is what I'm seeing. So for instance, an Indian will say, I'm a United States citizen. I want to, stay a United States citizen. What they're not including in their assessment of being a citizen is that there's two different ones, right? So they're not even addressing that issue. They're not addressing that there's a federal citizen and a state citizen. Now, the government, is not trying to let you let you know what those the two different Indians citizens are, right? You just will never know, but you will hear that from folks like Glenn Fern and Anna von Reitz. I have to give them that credit because that's where I learned this. Now, I'm not saying they're the perfect thing for Indians to be. I'm just saying they're going to tell you what the difference is. Whereas in Indian country, you're never going to know. Indians are going to lump them both together, and you'll never know the difference. Okay, so once again, we heard something in one of Dane's videos that was it was cause for pause. And before we even look at what I looked up after, hearing this, what we want to say first of all is Indians have choices, okay? Indians have choices. What are the choices of Indians, whether they are civilized or not, right? The choice is you can get up out of your civilized and federal United States citizen state of being if you want to. So more than criticize civilized Indians, what I would hope to do from now on, okay, as we said, we live and we learn. From now on, I want to say to particularly the five civilized tribes, yes, you've gotten some Moorish dirt on your hands, but you can wash your hands. A Moor cannot. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say. But the Indian has to have presence of mind to separate and start to rebuild our nation. You see, the Moors have had all their nations. They just want us to be a little, what do they call it, North Gate of their empire. No, thank you, sir. No, thank you, sir. We don't want to be part of your little what do you call it, empire. We're the best thing that ever happened to your empire. That's why you're still here. But you are the worst thing to have happened to us. Because when you come, once again, the larger segment of Indians become black. That's what you are in actuality, right, Moore? So Indians, what is Heru trying to do here? I'm seeing the picture before me, and I'm calling Indians up out of it. That's what I'm doing. Okay, let's just be clear about it. But that is for Indians who want to be out of this Moorish uh, uh, mishmash of mayhem. Okay, you're taking on a trifling legacy. I'm telling you right now, they've got plenty blood on their hands. And so when I show you the screenshot, it's not to offend the five civilized tribes. I'm saying five civilized tribes, they have a choice to get up out of that and just stand on your Indian. Let your Moor stand on his square and let you stand on whatever, you know, we don't have to use their terms. You stand on your business. Let him stand in his square, but he has to get out of yours. Why? We're gonna look at the screenshot right now. And again, this is not to offend the five civilized tribes, but it does make things it thickens the plot. Okay. And here we gotta go. Gotta do it, y'all. So let's do it. Okay. Now this is what I heard very quickly in one of things video. I'm not sure it's the latest one, but as I said, it I th I think my continuous play played another one of his videos, and what I learned, the question was, did the five civilized tribes have slaves? And as you see, there is the answer. So this we have to look at this and the implications of this. Now, mind you, the five civilized tribes are infiltrated by Moors, right? So, of course, they're going to have slavery, right? It just comes with the Moorish package. What I'm trying to get Indians to see is the brother, quote unquote. You might think he's your brother, but this imposter that you are entertaining in your family is driving you through the mud, as that was one of the phrases in the film Sparkle when Sister was trying to get with that player, and all he did was drag her in the, what'd she say? Drag you through the gutter. Um, this is a similar situation with the five civilized tribes, right? So you're civilized, and the first thing you go about to do is have slavery, right? That's being civilized. Now, the uncivilized tribes are not being accused of this. This is one of those things you hear it real quick, and then you have to say to yourself, wait, let's rewind. What did you just tell me? So, what we want to grapple with, first of all, let's read it. The answer to the question, did the five civilized tribes have slaves? Yes, the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee. Oh, remember, we said Cherokee, come home. Well, we still asking the Cherokee to come home, even though they was involved in slavery, because once they give up their Moorish identity, they can be Indians again. All of these Indians, right? That's the idea here, and we will not be United States citizens. That's the only part that I guess they have to want to reckon with. But yes, the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, did own slaves. So when you hear that Indians own slaves, and they try to throw that mud on you. Just remind them, well, we were infiltrated by Moors, and then they brought that system. See, when you claim you're Indian, you can let go of this crap and give it back to where it came from. So it's saying they were primarily African Americans. Now, I believe that they did start out African or Black European. I do believe that. I don't think we started using our children first. I think perhaps this was and then once they snatched them away through emancipation, something. So see, that's the sort of, you know, up for, we gotta go deeper and get that. But either way, the when I see how this corporation operates, they give and then they snatch away. Remember, they just recently brought a millions of illegal immigrants here, and they had the life of Riley for all of what was it, even a year? And now Trump comes in, and all of that has been snatched away. This is what the system does. It dines you, winds you, and then it throws you to the curb like yesterday's hoe. Okay, that's what it does. So I think my thought is that this is what happened to the five civilized tribes. They were being set up, y'all. They were being set up. And I'll put you this way: the Moors that you fell in love with, even if they were cool, they come with baggage. So their overlord, he's using them. Now, they might not be aware of what's down the pipeline after they mix in with you. What the colonizer just needs him to do is mix in with you. That's all and then once that happens, now you're civilized. Bec- Because remember, you were heathen before that. See, I'm the type of Indian, if I enter in your story as a heathen, I have to walk around and always walk with caution, because they say your first impression is the one that uh really sticks. Okay, so the first impression of the Indians in the civilized world is that we are heathen. And as I said before, the way you entered the play, that is the way you're going to exit the play. They're going to always look at you as those who were heathen. You see, if you exit, but it'll be a good thing if you do exit. It would be really great if you could leave this funky, foul play, this theater that the Moors have created and wrote you in to be the heathen, okay? And then the heathen get dragged through the mud, and now the messes of the Moors is on your hands. So yes, the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, did own slaves, primarily African Americans. We asked this to AI, by the way. uh, Adopting the practice of slavery from, no, it wasn't white settlers, y'all. These are the Moors. King James, a whole black man, okay? This is part of his system, okay? That's where Indians got it from. That's why my hope in life is that one day India will be able to say, that actually wasn't us that built this system. We actually didn't. It was a system that was brought here by the Moors. Let's just cut to the chase. Who are the Moors? They started out a priesthood, and then they started having offspring that they call kings and queens of Europe and Africa. Okay. Remember, we didn't need them, Indians. There is your motive right there. If we were some kind of nobility, which I don't think we were like they were, I don't think we did what they did. We weren't looking to take over them. They were always looking to take over us. And I'm starting to really sit with that. And I think the reason for that was this continent is huge. And I think these wandering no basically in exile in Africa and Europe where they belonged. They just needed a large enough plantation, and so they never could take their eyes off of America. All they, they had, well, they had their what they uh, clung to was their nobility. They just didn't have a landmass fitting, I can imagine them saying, for a king. So they would never leave American Indians alone. Although they had all of the outside world, outside of the Americas, because they knew what America was working with, the world was never enough. The world outside of America they couldn't leave us alone, y'all. We were fine without them. We were fine without them. Then they infiltrated some Algonquins. Those Algonquins became Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, and the most famous of all, Iroquois Confederacy. Although it seems to me the Iroquois Confederacy came later, from what I can muster up, you know, because, I think the Iroquois were a diversion in terms of the whole drama of Indians is really taking place in the southern, what we call states, what they call states. We call it just all of our land, okay? All of our ancestral land. So I think the Iroquois were introduced to give the illusion that the Algonquins were in the northern. Now Algonquins were in the northern eastern. Well, we all were Algonquin, right? But then after infiltration, Algonquins were seen as just coastal. That's where we got relegated to. But the whole eastern woodland area, and I'm telling you, we were all speaking Algonquin. So we were Algonquin before colonizers showed up, okay? But what I'm saying is because the focus of the European Moors, the Black European Moors, was the South, they needed to give the impression that, no, we're not looking at the South. The Iroquois up in the northern part of America. So I'm trying to say for the Black nobility, the Moors, to give the illusion that Algonquins were more northern Indians, they needed to create an Iroquois confederacy to war with these northern Algonquins. See, the idea was the Algonquins weren't in the South. Those was all Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole. We didn't bother the Algonquins. No, the Algonquins were the first thing you saw. You surely did bother the Algonquins, and that's why you stirred the pot. And then next thing you know, the Algonquins turned Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, and Iroquois, right? Muskogean, Timucuan, all of that, right? We found some information that suggests that Powhatan was actually from Florida. How about them apples? So what I'm saying is Algonquin was all over this piece. And I have to correct myself. We were not just east of the Mississippi. There are Algonquins on the west of Mississippi. So what I'm trying to say is, y'all, I believe most of North America was Algonquin. There's little remnants of Algonquins as far as like the Midwest. Okay, we were all over until before, and then colonization, it started off softly. Before King James, they were intermarrying with what would become the 5 civilized tribes. So that's why they're civilized. In other words, we grabbed up a bunch of Algonquins that were heathen, because the Algonquins are heathen, okay, except for the Lenni Lenape, who were also civilized, and Moorish. Everywhere a Moor touches, really, it's the beginning of your ruining. And that's what I'm trying to get Indians to see. We can't coddle these Black Europeans. They have a land to turn to. That's why we have to be extra diligent They're trying to take yours, Indian, and they don't want a whole lot of Indians here. They prefer a lot of more of their family here, so they can call this land theirs. And then the narrative will change. Say, well, you sort of just we were here before you. See, that's what the ultimate goal is when when they call Indians black, that's to minimize our presence on our land so that perhaps they can say, well, they were black Europeans first in America. No, that's not what it was. Um, the Moors were expelled. The first emanation of Moors, they weren't called Moors when they were here. Once they get expelled, they become Moors, okay? That is their name for themselves because now they have to detach from us, right? And this is where the enmity shows its face. This is where we see that they were not our friends because once they got expelled, they had to deny that we existed. So the whole world again knew us as the New World when the Moors knew better. And when you see a Caucasian appear, that's because the Moor has sent him here because the European world did not know about America. None of the Americans, right? The Moors knew about us. And it's looking very much like they reared Europeans up to come after quote unquote heathens. So now one might say, well, why would the Moors send them after other black people? There's your answer. Because we were the heathens. And so, when you think about what you call white superiority or whatever, that's where it's coming from. Why? What in a Caucasian's deep in the windmills of the Caucasian mind? What has been planted by the Moors is that you are superior because they were heathen. You were always reared up by us Moors to be civilized. We had to go to America and do some civilizing because those were the heathen blacks. So what the Moor did, it wasn't really a race thing because the Moors look like us, right? It was a religious thing, which is why religion is so critical. But a lot of our Indians are not ready to give up that religion. You're gonna be stuck, guys. Yeah, you'll have, oh, what a friend you have in so and so, but you won't have much else, y'all. You'll just have a lot of indoctrination from your worst enemy. You were heathen because you were not of the Abrahamic faiths. None, not any of them. So when you hear folks saying, "Oh, they were the Israelites," just please, just don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. If you were the Israelites, you would not have been seen as heathen. You would just be the lost Israel tribes, like they keep saying we are, right? Not heathen, though. You wouldn't enter the picture as heathen. You would just be what? The lost tribes, right? We were never known as the lost tribes, I would say, until colonization. And colonization started before, I would say before the 1400s, because we had the little visitors coming. I'd say the first visitor we had was one of the dynasties that we kicked out. They saying it was Ramses. Now we saw where Ramses is said to come here before this Abu Bakari is said to have. I mean, I think they're both pretty much the one. Okay, the one that may be more real is the Ramses visit. That might actually be legitimate. But this Abu Bakari story is hella fishy, y'all. I think it's made up. If it's not made up, it's exaggerated. Oh, 2,000 ships came. Oh my God. If you look on the coastline and you saw 2,000 ships coming your way, wouldn't that look like war to you? Wouldn't that look like an invasion to you, Indian? But this is what the Moors talk about. They're so happy to talk. See, they're trying to give the impression once again that they were here. So they have to say 2,000. Can you imagine how many people that is? Thousand, like at one point they say it was 2,000 ships, right? I think they're trying to say, well, 1,000 was supplies and 1,000 was people. They're trying to give the impression that so many of them came here that they're actually the first people of America. You get out of here with your lies, Moors. That story has not been validated, y'all. That Abu Bakari visit, I would say it's an exaggeration of some sort. I don't think that if there was a visit here from called Mali, which is where the five civilized tribes are tracing themselves to. If there was Mali didn't exist till what the 13th century AD, so they're too young to be us. But they were trying to say that they were the first ones here. So see, they're erasing your history, Indian, by trying to say we started when they arrived. We were here before they arrived. They were expelled from America. Okay, so again, this Mali visit, I if it's not total fiction, then it is highly exaggerated, and not that many of these folks got here. They just need to have some story where they can say they were here before Europeans. Okay, I think the Ramsey story is probably more real than the uh, Abu Bakari story, and they're saying that Ramses came here in like the 1100s, I believe. Ugh, I always get that wrong, man. I but it was well before. It was about, I think it was about 1100s, but it was and well before Mali Abu Bakari came in the 1300s, and then of course Columbus comes in the 1400s, right? So let's finish reading this and move on. Yes, the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, did own slaves, primarily African Americans, adopting the practice of slavery from white status Moors, settlers, and participating in the institution, particularly during the 1800s. See, so we were already infiltrated. See, if it's particularly in the 1800s, that means we weren't really doing it before the arrival, of these Moors. These King James was a Moor, okay? He's just one that was said to be somehow Judeo-Christian, okay? When you read Lee Cummings is basically saying he was not Christian, he was a Hebrew Israelite, okay? So that's why I know Indians were not. We were the ones that expelled them because of the religion, you know. And again, especially when they started pushing a Caucasian figure, oh, Indians wasn't having that. And that's what it was leading to. They created a deity after Alexander's image and likeness. Walter Williams, Historical Origins of Christianity, he tells us that now, again, he's looking at the African Egypt, but we know there was the original Egypt called Tameri in the Americas. We are the original civilization known as Tameri. But when we expelled the dynasty, they picked up in Africa, and then they spread it everywhere except the Americas because we did not want what they were selling. What they were selling was a dishonor of the ancestors that we knew. That is why they had to go. And I might speculate that they wanted more slavery because, as we see, the Moors come with slavery, right? So maybe that was another part of it. I think they were trying to make us a slave class of people to the dynasty system. You know, the dynasties were getting progressively more and more ugly. The first dynasty, as we said in one of our videos, that started in South America. And back then it was known as just America. When Columbus discovered, quote unquote, America, again, as we always say, he was never in North America. He was in South America and the Caribbean. The first year on, okay. So from Dynasty 1 to part of the 18th dynasty, we had 18 dynasties in the Americas. And before that, we had two. Now, before the dynasties, we had two kingdoms. That's what we're saying. But again, if these are the nobility of America, again, they got progressively more dominant, just like we see with our own government, right? Indians here in the quote unquote United States. It starts off like you think it's the best thing on earth, right? Oh, it's they free. Oh, yeah, they free. And then over time, something happens, right? The freedom ain't quite freeing anymore. That's what the dynasty system does. So back then it took them longer because they were just getting this shit show on the road. So it took 18 dynasties for us to start seeing where this ship was going, this Moorish ship was going. They got more and more powerful. And it was the priesthood actually that led this power play, because the Amen priesthood was the most powerful priesthood the America has ever seen until we kicked that ass out. The Amen priesthood started with the 18th dynasty. That's when they had to go. That priesthood was looking to dominate with religion in a way that we had not ever seen in all of our 3,400 BC years. The dynasty was getting really jiggy, y'all. And they became so powerful that it was no longer about we, quote unquote, the men and women. I was going to say we the people, so no need for quotes. We, the men and women, were just little, little mini corporations for them to own. They just didn't see our divinity anymore. They were the divine. And so then we need a savior. And it's like, no, y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta get the hell out of here with that. It became all about the nobility, y'all. And that's what we got rid of in the Americas. So if you saw us living what they would call a not as quote unquote civilized life, as I said before, it's because we know what civilized leads to. We know what civilized leads to, and we're looking at it right here. Once slavery enters the picture, now though all those who took part in it, now they gotta they don't want to be known for that no more, right? So, but I'm saying Indians always have a choice. Indians, this was not your style, okay? 5 civilized tribes, hear me and hear me well. You can get up out of that crap, and you need to. You really need to. You are civilized by an ancient priesthood that glorifies you, but look how it treated you. Had you with these slaves, so now it blames you for slavery. You didn't start it, 5 civilized tribes. You didn't start this slavery. Your ancestors tried to get rid of this bullshit. And then they come and they sweet talk you. But see, by that time, we don't even know, like most of us now, we don't even realize that we are ancient Timeri. A lot of our Indians don't want to have nothing to do with Timeri. That's a yes and a no with me, because I do understand the dynasty system was full of shit. They became self-serving. The priesthood became self-serving. So yeah, it amounts to shit, okay? And as I said before, even as far back you go with the Osar, y'all know I used to bat for and windmill for Osar and ISIS and them. You know how bad I was windmilling. I have changed. See, Indians have options. Why did I change? Why am I no longer a big fan of the original Trinity with Osar? And y'all remember that video where I was showing you a picture of the two legacies, the one legacy being fought over by two different people, Africa and America. Remember? Yeah, I'm not that person no more, y'all. I could do without the Osarian religion as well as anything that came out of the Osarian religion, including Christianity. Okay, why? It's a death cult, y'all. Osar had to die, as I said, in the last few videos. Anything that has to die, you got to watch out, because if it becomes your religion, they're going to be looking to kill you. The more you worship the dying or dead deity, the more death you call to your soul, to your life. When I think about it now, I think it was a well-crafted religion meant to lead us to the Judeo-Christian faith, where we have to, the people are no good. See, this is a priesthood talking, not God. This is the priesthood judging humanity, men and women of the world. This is the priesthood's point of view, not God's point of view of us. The priesthood think that we are sinners, because that will work to their advantage. That will keep them valid. If you're a sinner, then you need somebody like a saint, right? To guide you to the light that is already in you. Therefore, you don't need to be guided to it. Least of all from some priest. Okay, you might need somebody, but when it's an organized mafia like the priesthood, no, you don't need that, y'all, because you'll never get to the light. They're going to always want to be here to guide you to hell, because that's where they're actually guiding. Priesthood ain't no joke. And as we said before, that is why your secret societies are so ritualistic. They're doing rituals, y'all. Those hazing rituals and all of that, they are actual rituals, because it's all being led by a priesthood is the point, okay? We're all being secretly led by a nobility that is above the nobility. Who is that? The priesthood, y'all. Yeah. And nobody should know that better than Indians, we are the most religified. Why? Because we've been under the priesthood the longest. Before the world got them, they were here in our midst in the dynasties. Even, in their scriptures, they speak about characters like King David seeking the priest. What was his priest? Samuel? Was that it? For guidance. That's what the priesthood, see, they guide you, but where they guide you, watch out, yo, because you're doing their bidding, not yours. Even the kings are doing the bidding of the priest. The priest is the one who put the crown on the king's head, right? All right. So now we getting it? Okay. Indians have choices. Why? Because this is your land. And when you take it back, when you really take it back, it's going to be with a vengeance because the five civilized tribes are going to finally realize they don't have to be stuck in this bullshit. They can be the free Indians that they were before colonization. And then we can become the family that we were before these Moors showed up that were supposed to be uh, out of here permanently. They weren't supposed to come back. Okay? They got expelled, yo. So we still didn't finish this. White settler. Oh, give me a break. These were King James was a whole Negro. He started this, not the settlers. He sent the settlers. It's about the five civilized tribes in slavery. The practice of slavery, members of these tribes owned enslaved people, using them as domestic and agricultural laborers. Yeah, once some more comes in your family, all of a sudden you're gonna be doing what he do. See, he overtakes your culture with his. And then you got to protect him because now that's your boo now. But again, Indians, when you see a larger picture and you see what it might not be your specific boo, but it's the ones over him, the ones pulling his strings. They just need him to be in your all up in your Kool-Aid, so then they can start to change history. And now they're going to only focus on the civilized tribes. The uncivilized ones, oh yeah, we get to be called black, right? Negro colored. That's to decrease our numbers and divide us. Civilized and uncivilized. That's the other two types of Indians. What I should say, that's what we're really talking about: civilized and uncivilized Indians. But the civilized tribes are really doing some crazy shit, right? And they're being treated badly. That's the other thing. I don't know why these tribes. Oh, that's right, the money. Somehow there's money somewhere because that's what the land is being given up for is money. But then you remain landless while your history is being dissolved by a more Moorish uh, Black European African history. That's what you see, Indians. Yes, you are giving your birthright away for whatever you're getting, but you have options. You can say, no, sir, thank you, and send that Moor right back to his home in Africa. He denied you before he got in bed with you. He denied that you existed. And then when he came, oh, now you can exist, right? Because he only needs you to get access to your birthright. But once he gets with you, you will slowly disappear. And his history will say that he was always here. He's gonna use you. He's gonna use your reality, the reality of you. He's gonna meld that into his, and it's only gonna be his. So then he'll call America the Northwest Gate or some shit. No, you was a gate. You the gate way out of here, right? Y'all got kicked out of here. Keep your gates over in Africa and Europe and Asia, okay? Uh the practice, okay, we're reading Impact of European Contact. This is Black European. The practice of slavery among these tribes intensified after contact with European colonists. You see? You see? They came and it got ugly, and then you lost your land. See, it starts off good. Then you get engaged in a little slavery games, and then next thing you know, the Indian loses his farm to the indenture, and the indenture. That's why I'm saying the indenture had to be Black European, because the whole point is for the Moor to take your shit. Now That's where the toss-up is. Some people say, well, it was our children. That wouldn't make sense though, because if it was our children, we would still own our farms, right? But if it was some black Moors, then we'll lose the farm. So was emancipation for Indians or was it for the black and some white indentures? I'm convinced my family had a white indenture because he's on one of our records. He's the only one listed as white, and he's the one that is said to be the farmer. Meanwhile, he's not head of household. Sound like an indenture to me, y'all. He was learning farming, but the head of the household, they call him a laborer. Oh, okay. Yeah, right. All right. That was the farmer, and that white dude on my census record, that was the indenture. And if history goes like we're saying, he's the one that ended up with the land. Okay? So that's why the more the thing that makes more sense is that your indentures were foreigners. And the drama becomes all about them. Well, now we got to free them from these bad Indians. Well, he wouldn't be there if your black Negro peeing ass wasn't there, right? You the one that brought him there, and then you're going to accuse me of slavery. That's what you do. This is what happens. See, again, Indians, we gotta understand. The Black European, he is the writer of history. Somewhere in the priesthood, they have a publishing company, okay? Yeah. So while you're there living your life, someone is rewriting the story and making you look like the bad guy. Oh, the 5 civilized tribes had slaves. Yeah, that was during colonization. And that was to let you, Black Europeans, take over our land and start to write your version of history. I say the 5 civilized tribes, get out of it now. Get out and have your land back, please. These Moors ain't trying to let you do that. It's going to be all convoluted and lies all over the place. It's like, just give me my land back and go home. Ever since you came here, it's just been chaos. Go home. Black, European, African, go home. The practice of slavery among these tribes intensified. Are we reading this, Indians? Do you see what happened? Those Europeans were black Europeans. Post-Civil War changes. This is what the Civil War was about, apparently. After the Civil War, the U.S. government forced the 5 tribes. Ooh, y'all. So what are they admitting? That the South belonged to the Indians. That whole Confederacy, see, they made y'all a Confederacy. That's not something we did. That's after your Moors come, you joined. He built this government, not you, Indians. See, you got to separate. Let the Moor see. Once you give what the Moor is due, then you will start to rise, my Indian. And I'm even talking about these Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw Creek, and Seminole. Watch how you rise after you sever your ties. Now, the ones in your family, all you got to do, start telling them about our original history, yo. Enough of this BS about, because why is it BS? Because it's lies. Now they blaming slavery on Indians. Look at this, y'all. This is what happens when you get with a fucking Moor, okay? They blame, look, what did we just read? They're talking about the South, y'all, and now they're saying it was all these Indians was doing, just you, by the way. After the Civil War, the U.S. government forced the 5 tribes. Shit. So Indians, you just got accused of slavery. All of the slavery of America is being put on the five civilized tribes. They use you. They use you just like in Sparkle. When their mother told sister, he's gonna drag you in the mud. And sister just couldn't see it. She was high yellow too, right? It was her Indian mother telling her high yellow ass, she gonna drag you through the mud. That black European gonna drag you in the dirt. No, mama, he's big time. He ain't gonna do that. You just don't understand. And he abused sister till she just died. And that's why Sparkle had to take over. He's the next one with long hair and pretty features and stuff. Now we don't know what happened to the Indian full blood. She was just there. Well, short hair self. They always trying to show Indians with no hair. Um, drag you through the mud. Civilized tribes, come on back to Indian land. You could keep your Moorish family. I don't mean get rid of them like that. I just mean you got to take the dominance. And what is your dominance? Well, it's hinted at in the Constitution. It's just hinted at because the Moors built that with the Iroquois. They held the Iroquois hand and wrote the law of peace, right? And said, "Oh, you see, y'all did that. See, it wasn't us. Ooh, see, y'all had slaves, not us. You was the slave masters in America, not us." That's what I'm reading, y'all. AI done told it. That last point at the bottom, I just realized they're blaming slavery on the five tribes. So the North forced the five tribes to abolish slavery so that they can get the Southern Indians land. You see, and grant citizenship. Oh Lord, that again to their formerly enslaved people known as freed men. Oh my God! You see how they do you, Indian? So when you see we confused, we was freedmen. No, you were the landowner. You see how the Moor causes chaos so he could take your land, civilized tribes? And what did citizenship do for these quote unquote black Europeans, right? We weren't supposed to be citizens, Indians. I don't care what you hear on other platforms. We done looked at the proof. We were not supposed to be citizens. We're gonna look at it again. Indians think that they're citizens. Oh my God, you're in trouble. You've been civilized. That's all. But I will continue to say you have a choice. But the choice does involve you choosing your land over fiat. That's what the hardest, and to a lesser degree, yeah, you might. Well, we won't go with the religion. I know y'all ain't ready for that, right? But you can free yourself from this system if you really are about your land, but you have to be really about your land. Now, I'm going to say this: you do get compensation, but never rely on money. Never rely on it. Rely on your land. Money is given to you by a colonizer, right? He's minting that money, printing that money using your trees. He should every time a dollar is printed, Indian, you should get compensated. That's your trees. So if they see this corporation is always all about if they make it, it's theirs. But well, if you're using my trees, then it's mine. So the money is mine, right? So every instead of the Federal Reserve getting kickbacks for us using money, we should be getting the first cut, right? And that's going to be the larger cut, right? Because that's just how business goes, y'all. You know that the CEO gets more money than all the little slaves, right? Well, the Indians will be the CEO, okay? And we're looking for our cut, and it's going to be a big one, y'all. Nobility don't they start melting when they hear that shit. They can't dream of a life without 1,000 extra homes and vehicles or whatever, 1,000 things that they absolutely do not need, but they just want to have it because that's what I'm supposed to have. Not on my back, you ain't. You better take that shit back to Europe and Africa. You better get what you need from there. So yeah, this is just the first slide. My gosh, we didn't even. So, Indians, when you look at that, I invite you to get up out of it. Stop thinking about their money. Your land is worth much more to the world. You should be conducting any quote unquote commerce. Why? Because it's you that was needed. It's you that the Moors sought out to be their centerpiece in their sick, twisted world of slavery and S&M's domination shit. It might be fun in the bedroom, but it ain't fun in real life, y'all. Ain't nothing fun about being the one that's constantly abused, okay? These damn sadomasochistic Moors, shit. Oh my gosh. Look what I need y'all Indians to look at this, especially that last part. This puts everything into perspective. This last part, after the Civil War, the US government forced the five tribes to abolish. It's like you were the only ones they're accusing of doing this, y'all. But they gave you that so they could snatch it away and make you look like the bad guy, and they look like the good guy for getting rid of slavery. They're the ones that got you to do it. If you were doing something like this, if they were your children, you know damn well you weren't abusing them. No, you weren't. And if it was your children, the farm would have stayed in the family, right? So we know that this can't be true that it was mostly us that were the indentures. There were white indentures too, y'all. Like the one that's on my family tree that's being listed as white. He's probably a Moor, and he probably wasn't white. You see what I'm saying? So that's another thing to consider. If you have a record where there's one odd white man and a whole family of Indians called black, he's probably a Moor with a white status. And then they roll in the physically white man and then say, he the one that did this to you, not me. These Moors are they like a fucking Tom and Jerry episode, my God. Oh my God. They like a freaking Pinky and the Brain Roadrunner shit, my God. My whole life reduced to a fucking Looney Tunes with these damn boys. Jeez, please, Indians, get rid of these more so we can go forward into our future the right way for our benefit, not for the Moors and their priesthoods that's puppeting all of them. We severed the puppet strings as Indians. We severed the puppet strings of the dynasty and the priesthood. That Amen priesthood got kicked out. We read they became so powerful, they owned land, like just like the government, right? They became so powerful. So you can't tell me that Akhenaten ass didn't benefit from the Amen priest. Before he changed his name to Akhenaten, he was Amenhotep the third, y'all. So he was right there with the priesthood, the Amen priesthood, because that's why his name was Amenhotep, right? Because he's down with the Amen priesthood. And we read that, they're trying to say that he was fighting against the Amen. That cannot be true. You don't fight against, if your priesthood is the most powerful one that there ever was, what sense would it make for you? How would you not be benefiting from that? That's what we thought about Mr. Akhenaten's little lie story. Oh, he was upset with the priesthood. They wanted too much power. Well, they was all that power he was benefiting from, just like King James, Oh, he had a problem with the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is what gave you your freaking crown. Sit down. Sit down. Stop it. You're just having a boo spat. A spat with your boo. That's all you do. But at the end of the day, that priesthood is the one that put the crown on your dumb head, right? And now they puppeting you. You're doing the priest bidding more than your own because you're going there. What did God want me to do? And the priest said, well, God said, go over there and kick them Indian ass. That's what he said. Go do it now. Then the Indians, start to transform into this, what we're looking at. And then they get put out on the Trail of Tears and shit. It's like, do y'all see how bad you're getting treated? Or are you just used to it? Indians, you get a bad name when the Moor shows up. Slavery intensified with colonization, which means we didn't have this type of deal going on. I don't think we had it at all, to be honest. We were minding our business, and then the priests sent these knuckleheads over here, the Catholic Church priests. Of course, now they have washed their hands of this mess. They said, "Oh shit, time to exit stage left, y'all." Let the cards fall where they may, you know. So the priesthood has abandoned the mission, and rightfully so. It's up to Indians now to take advantage of that. Their daddy has said, I can't be a daddy right now. The fate has come to clean house in America, and I got to establish this repudiation. I got to write it. I have to, y'all. I mean, we could try maybe in another, I don't know how, they say every 2,600 years they got the demon is allowed or whatever. But see, if we're prepared, Indians, we will never fall for this again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If we are prepared, see, they keep their records, right? They keep to the mission. The priesthood keep the records, and then they make the kings feel like they have all this knowledge and wisdom. But the thing is, a lot of what the priest is writing is a pack of lies, right? Right. Because they're all about dominating the world with their version of God, right? Right. That's the priest doing that, right? Right. And then the kings feel like they holier than thou, and then they got a divine right? Because their daddy told them they divine, right? Wrong. You're not. You're as divine as my appendages. Yeah. No, actually, there's more divinity there than you, got. Sorry. Oops. Um, I'm just disgusted by them, y'all. I'm sorry. Mm. I'm disgusted by the priesthood because they're behind this. But again, Pope Francis has repudiated the doctrine of discovery. That cannot be overlooked. That cannot be overstated. That is your ticket out of here, out of this bullshit, Indians. In that you don't have to be a citizen, okay? Well, the Constitution didn't have you as a citizen, even though Indians insisted that we citizens. I don't know what's going on. We were not citizens, y'all. Supposed to be. So if we're choosing that now, that's just the Black European talking, y'all. Got us talking crazy, right? Puppeting us, some of us, you know. But I really feel like that last bullet point kind of says it all, y'all. So that clears up who the freedmen were. They were the Black Europeans. Because how you going to be freed from your parents, right? To the point of being freedmen. And then they set up the Black Europeans with bank accounts and shit. And the next thing you know, it's the Indian, whoever's losing land, that's the Indian. That's the Indian. Um, this whole thing was to get the South to their knees, and to give them a bad name, like they were the big bad thing in America. America thrives on slavery. So even if the civilized tribes did do this, know damn well the U.S. government was behind it. They thrive, but that's why they had these illegals here, y'all. Come on. Now the illegals didn't really do the hardcore labor. They just wanted them to rack up the national debt, I believe, because I don't see why you would have all these people. Well, also, yeah, the numbers. They counted Indians, and see, that's why they ain't supposed to count Indians, because they take account, get all nervous, and start wanting to get rid of us and bring in foreigners. So the foreigners here for a number of reasons, right? Rack up the debt. Now they sending them home. Ain't nobody talking about the bill they racked up though. Who you think they're gonna tag that on? That's gonna be United States citizens. That's why you don't want to be a United States citizen. Now we could talk all glorify citizenship like, oh, it was just the states. Well, we weren't part of the states either. You know, but at the end of the day, the United States citizen, as we saw in the last video, they cannot question the public debt, y'all. So that's what makes being a citizen not the greatest thing in the world. If you can't question a debt that's put on your table, you are a slave, no matter what it looks like. Now, state citizens could question the debt because it didn't say that they couldn't. There is no definition of the state citizen saying that they were bound to or subject to anything. Okay, they weren't. State citizens weren't subject to the U.S. federal government because it created the federal government. You can't be subject to something you created. So that's the difference between the citizenships. A state citizen, now the state citizen were supposed to be white originally. But the 14th Amendment came along, and that's when anything called black was given citizenship only after the 14th Amendment. Before that, citizenship was only for white people, y'all. Indians were Indians in the Constitution. That's how you know you weren't a citizen. Because in the Constitution, it says Indians. If you were a citizen, it just would have said free persons. You would have been a free person if you were a citizen. You would have been like a free person. That's it, y'all. Indians were Indians, not citizens in the Constitution. They were Indians who didn't pay taxes, who were not counted in the census. Citizens get counted in the census. Citizens get representation in Congress. You don't want to get caught up in their laws, code, rules, statutes, and regulations because it's arbitrary in terms of one day they might find something positive and then the next day they're going to find something negative. It's just a game, y'all. The Republicans, Democrats, you don't want to be any of that. So why look at their codes and statutes? We did not build this system. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Whatever we had, they're saying it was the civilized tribes basically that they got their cues from. But in reality, it was the civilized tribes being dominated by Black Europeans. So they can say that we got it from the civilized tribes. Yeah, but when they were uncivilized, then what? Who civilized them, by the way? Okay, so that's the one that's running the show, not the Indian. So again, look at that page in front of us, and we'll know that we didn't build this system. It's a system of slavery. It's corporate slavery. where the nobility get to hide behind the corporations because they have the money to buy the corporation. It's a wonderful system because the nobility don't have to do nothing but sit back and see what corporation becomes so big that they have to buy it and control it. And then by that, control the people. So Facebook comes along and the nobility says like, ooh, that's a good one. We're gonna have to Bill, can you hey, could you arrange a corporate takeover of Facebook, please? Uh, Brad, there's this thing called YouTube. Could you arrange a corporate takeover, please, and bring it under regulation so we can see what these Negroes are doing? Oh, well, they used to be called Indians. We call them Negroes. So that's what the nobility do. That's why corporations are a trap, y'all. Because the more successful you are, you're just gonna get a corporate takeover, and then the thing you built is gonna become the thing that spies on people at best, because that's the ones they really want. The ones that, oh, you invented a little phone with a camera? Huh. Brad, could you pull a monopoly on these little gadgets they have called cell phones? That's what the priesthood do when they're not chasing each other around the coffee table. I had to go there. I'm sorry. I had to go there. I had to go there. Do what you want to do. Just don't be all up in my country messing me over, okay? Just leave me alone, okay? That's all I'm asking, okay? Um, so see, here we go again with these long videos. So okay, so I just want us to be clear or try to be clearer. I'm trying to get some clarity too, y'all, because I'm stuck on this last one because I just think there's something there um to be studied to look into focused on because it helps to line up the ducks. So now the South is accused of slavery, and then the North becomes the hero, like, ending that bad slavery of British Europeans. Like they say, you took our slaves and made them your slaves. That's not right. But the nobility was mixed up in there. Remember we even saw in one of Dane's videos where what's her name? Harriet Tubman was a black nobility of some sort, right? So now these are the ones that apparently we had as indentures, but they call it slavery. And then they had to make an underground railroad. Blah, 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 blah. But see, when our identity gets all melded with a beast, then we get blamed for what the beasts do. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying Indians have to separate enough to get their land back and then tell our story without the influence of Black Europeans. So I think we're going to have to move on, although I'm really, a lot of my mind is still uh, reveling in this last bullet point here or this last paragraph or sentence or whatever. It's very telling. Formerly enslaved, known as freedmen. So those freedmen were not Indians because, see, this is what I'm grappling with. So the Indians owned the land, the farm, right? So the freedmen were working on the farm. And then the big savior, the United States, uh, puppeteer, connoisseur extraordinaire, they come in and swoop in like Superman and save these. What I'm grappling with is the fact that these were Black European indentures and white European indentures. So the U.S. government comes and swoops in like Mighty Mouse to save the day, and the Indians. Well, they even denying you that you were Indians. They just saying them black folks in the South were slave owners. So they don't even want you. See, if they put the Indian on it, then it's going to be what it was, which was Indians being manipulated out of their land by being called slave masters. Now, it's okay when the black Europeans make us corporate slaves, but it's not okay when you're trying to keep your farm for you to have these indentures that they gave you. And then when they snatch them away and look like Superman, now you the bad guy. That's what I'm trying to get through to Indians right now. Indians have choices. This does not have to be your history. But the more, this is the history he has for you. This is the part in the play that you get, the bad meaning, the heathen. Now you're civilized now, and you still ain't got it right. You see, Indian, we done civilized you, and you doing this horrible slavery, whipping Kizzy like that, and giving Patsy time to what's her name? Ngoyo. What's her name? Lupito Ngoyo, whipping her like Patsy time again. You bad, uncivilized, civilized Indians. Get your ass on that Trail of Tears. You're being puppeted by the Moors, y'all. He's using you, five civilized tribes. He's using you in his play as a like a warning to all other Indians. This is what happens to civilized. So y'all think about it. Meditate on it, y'all. If we doing this to civilized tribes, what the hell you think we're gonna do to your uncivilized heathen ass Negro ass? All right. So they're using Indians to show us what they do to civilized tribes and how very brutal these civilized tribes are with this bad slavery that, and then they show you the slave movies, the Kunta Kinte and stuff. But then in the movie they make us white. But now we hear the truth from AI that the Indians did that, y'all. See, the Indians get a bad. That's why I can't let this go, y'all. It's like, hey, Karu, can you move on? No, because I don't. It bothers me that Indians don't get this. And we really not getting this. You don't see being civilized was the worst thing that ever happened to Indians. And I'm hoping that those Indians can take their identity back so they can get all this shit off of their hands, this Moorish shit off their hands. They only using you to take your birthright, y'all. That's what I'm trying to say. You have choices. Indians have choices. Moors do not. That's why they hate us so much. Even when they call themselves loving you, this is the history they're giving you. Okay, so we're gonna move on. I can't let it go, y'all. I can't. I'm making a long video. Next. So this is what I wanted to in my last video. This one right here. Oops. Yeah. Oh, this one right here. We read something that I was bothering me, and we read it from this article. So we're gonna read it again because it was one of those things I couldn't let it go, just like I couldn't let that last screenshot go. That's how I guess that's my process, y'all. Sorry. Um, American Indians and the Constitution. So let's read to the point where we get to reading about Indians not taxed, because I had a problem and I want to show the circular circus merry-go-round when it comes to Indians not taxed, right? They're they're using chaos, y'all. And the thing is, it actually works because I see that it worked on me. I was reading this, and I'll tell you where I realized, oh my gosh, there's a problem here. And I think I actually explained it well in the video, but I was still not happy with it. So this is from encyclopedia.com. This is going to tell us that we were not citizens, but some Indians still think that we're supposed to be citizens. So, but then it got crazy in this little article. So we're not going to read the whole thing. I think I want to read to the point where it's only 3 pages. I don't know. We'll see. So, American Indians and the Constitution. Indians are mentioned only 3 times in the Constitution. Yet the Supreme Court has developed a vast body of law defining the status of Indians and tribes in our federal system. So we did read this before, y'all. Actually, we keep returning to it because I think I have to keep showing, and I have to use, platforms like encyclopedia.com to make the point that Indians are not ever citizens. We're the ones that contracted with the citizens. So if we're the citizens, who did the foreigners contract with? Other citizens? No. The Constitution is speaking of commerce that's supposed to happen, but never really did, between Indians and citizens who were in the states, citizens. So it wasn't citizens doing commerce with Indians because they were in America. So who were they in a contract with? It was Indians. So there's no way that we can be both. If we're both, that means we're losing our identity and we're buying from ourselves, which that's not what that's why when the government tries to own us, that's like they're doing commerce with themselves, and it's asinine. You don't do commerce with yourself, you do commerce with someone who has something that you need. But if you're greedy like the government is, you're going to take over and say, oh, now it's commerce. Now that we took over, yes, let's call it commerce. It's not commerce anymore. Okay, so no, Indians weren't citizens because the citizens were depending on Indians in this commercial agreement. They were depending on Indians to supply the food and whatever else Indians had, because it would have been closed too, because Indians had the cotton market that was one of our crops was cotton, right? So we were providing food, shelter, and clothing for all the foreigners. But we were supposed to get paid for that. And you're on our land, so you owe us tribute. This is what we learned from King Powhatan. The only Indian that I know, an Indian chief that I know that did it the right way. That, oh, you on my land, you're a foreigner, you pay me tribute. The thing is, when it's your people, then it benefits your people. You see, what we have things like, say, the Chinaman in your neighborhood with his Chinese restaurant. He's making money off of us, but it's not going back to us, as we all know. So the difference is when your people do it, somehow it's going to benefit you. The tribute that you pay to your chief is going to somehow impact your life. But when a foreigner is here and you're paying into his coffers, it does not benefit you as an Indian. And that's the problem with the United States being here. We were supposed to first of all, they should have been paying us rent as well as doing commerce with us. See, they don't want to talk about that. But now that the doctrine of discovery was repudiated, back rent is due, y'all. This is our land. It was never theirs. It was only theirs through conquest. Conquest provided by the doctrine of discovery, which has now been repudiated. Indians are mentioned only 3 times in the Constitution, yet the Supreme Court has developed a vast body of law defining the status of Indians and tribes in our federal system. We're not supposed to be in your federal system. Again, we're not supposed to be doing commerce with the people we're doing. We're not supposed to be the people that we're doing commerce with. Okay. We're separate. The federal system did not come here to do commerce with itself. It came here to, well, we're not going to say, well, what it really came here for, right? To steal, pillage, and profit and cut us out the deal. So when you become a citizen, you get cut out of the deal. You're one and the same with the federal system, so they don't have to pay you, right? They classify you black, you're at the bottom of everything, and so you get the least of anything. This law makes use of constitutional sources, but it also draws heavily upon the history between Indians and the federal government. Please stop talking bullshit. What is the history between the Indians and this United States government? It's a very ugly one, ridden with lies. So we wouldn't want it to draw on that, really, right? Again, before the US federal government was here, there was some trade going on with the French and the Algonquin, with the fur pelts, as we talked about. But after the government comes here, they just looking to meld you into them. So there will be no commerce. There'll only be the federal taking whatever it needs and making you work for them. Wars and conquest. Yeah, just say conquest, y'all. Those were bogus treaties. They just say that. But the treaties had to be bogus because we were heathen. You don't, the church would say you can't go into a contract with heathen. It would be ungodly. So you make pretend that you're in a contract, but you don't have to honor it because when you come over there, I told you you could do anything you want with these knuckleheads, rape them, kill them, torture them. And the ones who give in and don't fight, oh, they can be civilized. The other ones, you're going to have to take that ass out, let them meet Jesus in person. Hmm. Okay, so the assumption by the government, see, when they say assumption, that means they're going outside of the Constitution to assume that they have a protectorate relationship. Oh, now you want to protect the people that you're in a contract with, a commercial contract with. You're going to protect us now? Since when have we felt protected, even, say, for instance, in the presence of even cops? That's protection? Hmm? No, you're not protecting us. Stop lying to yourself. You're trying to every which way you can to get rid of us. That's what you're doing, okay? And make us you so that you can say, oh, the Indians died of smallpox, including wars conquered towards the tribes, a protectorate relationship toward the tribes. Yeah, give me a break. It reveals that our government, not your government, not mine, is not only, as is popularly believed, one of dual sovereignty. Whenever they go dual, there's a problem. There's only one sovereign in America, y'all, and you know who that is, don't you? These other quote unquote sovereigns are only here based on the doctrine of discovery that their daddy wrote up, right? Their daddy said, we ain't doing that no more. I repudiated that. So these wayward sons need to carry their narrow ass home, right? Right. So there's only one sovereign, y'all. But if we don't stand up, these other sovereigns are going to say, well, we still wearing the crown. I guess it should be us, right? The Moors, right? And what do the Moors bring with them? Every Tom, Dick, and Harry that they brought into existence. The ones they say they genetically altered into all the races. When the Moors come, they have to bring them because they are going to accuse those people. All the Moors are doing really is puppeting everyone, y'all. They're puppeting everyone. Indians, Europeans, Asians, Africans, and they think they do this in worship of their deity, that demon that they worship. This is who they doing this for. That's what they want us to believe, right? But the demon don't get the benefits. Who gets the benefits of all of this, right? The demon don't need money, right? The demon don't need land, do we? Demon is a spirit, right? So who actually gets all the benefits of all these shenanigans done unto their God? The Black Moors themselves, y'all. And they stay well tucked away somewhere, chasing each other around the coffee table. Um, so there is also a third sovereign. Oh boy. First, when they take your birthright, you become the last. And some Indians think that the first should be last. Yeah, you could take that place if you want. I'm gonna stay first. Thank you. If I came first, I can't help but stay first. I'm not gonna secondize myself for some freaking thief. Okay? Show me that you're worthy, and maybe I'll consider it. But actually, those words should never come out of an Indian's mouth. We've been there, done that. We know what it's like to be made last, right? We know all about that, don't we? In your own country, being made last. How about that? Are they last in their country, these Moors? But they want ours, and we got to become last. Oh yeah, that's so they can take our birthright. So the third sovereign is an Indian tribe. Now, notice he didn't say citizens. He said we're sovereign, right? Okay, we're third class, but we know we're supposed to be first class. The point is, he didn't say we're citizens. So there is a third sovereign consisting of Indian. I would have to say Indians, not tax y'all, because the way they have Indian tribes in the Constitution is that they are under regulation, laws, rules, or regulations. So regulations are just another form of statutes and codes, right? So the Indian tribes, the five civilized tribes, to be specific, as well as the Iroquois Confederacy, and apparently the Lenni Lenape, uh, they're only referring to them because every other Indian is black, remember? So we have to always remind ourselves with this fast talking, we got to backtrack a little bit and say, now, when they say Indian tribes, who they really talking about? Five civilized tribes. But they're not sovereign. Again, the way the Constitution is written, least of the Indians to be sovereign are the Indians in tribes, because Indians not taxed are not in tribes. But that's where the circular talk comes in, y'all. That's why we're reading this, because there's a circular thing going on that it caught me, and I didn't realize as I'm reading. I got I got gaslit. There is also a third sovereign consisting of Indians not taxed, because Indian tribes are not sovereign. They're under the regulation of Congress. And we decided that they don't have one representative in Congress, so it's all of Congress, right? Because who's representing Indian tribes? Oh, by now they must have created some kind of congressional council, I guess, because it looks to me that the entire Congress is just dominating Indians through quote unquote So regulation is whatever the hell they want it to be, right? But the point is, you are not sovereign because of that regulation. Indians are supposed to be sovereign, especially to be involved in commerce. Because if you're dominated by the entity that you're doing commerce with, it's not really commerce anymore, right? So they're saying there's a third sovereign. It's Indians not taxed, but they're saying it's Indian tribes because they don't want to deal with Indians not taxed, you see, because that's the real sovereign of the types of Indians. It's an uncivilized Indian not taxed. So there's also a third sovereign consisting of Indian tribes, but it's really Indians not taxed, operating within what? A limited. Listen, Indians are not supposed to be limited by their conquerors, who are now saying that they're not our conquerors anymore, but they're working with us now, is what the dealio we supposed to believe was. So if you're dominating me, you're still dominating me. So don't call it being sovereign, because that's not. Is any of the British nobility being dominated by anything but besides perhaps the Pope? So Indians are not supposed to be under a Pope either, because what? We were heathen. We didn't know nothing about that stuff until we became civilized, unfortunately. The three references to Indians in the Constitution presage this body of law. Well, it shouldn't, because you take three references and you meld them together as if they're one to make a body of law. The problem with that is the first reference of an Indian is someone who is not represented in Congress, who is not taxed, and who is not enumerated. So how can these three references be brought together? There's really only two references, but that 14th Amendment popped in 1868. Oh, and now there's three. There's really only two, the original two. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. The Commerce Clause. The second one is the Commerce Clause. The first one is the Indians Not Taxed Clause. So the Indian not taxed, as we saw in the last video, is not the same as an Indian in a tribe. They're two different things. The Indian not taxed is actually sovereign. The Indian tribe is being dominated in the guise of regulation. So two of the three are found in Article 1. So that's Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. We just, name them. And the 14th Amendment. That's Johnny come lately, y'all. And that's when they're mixing us up with citizens, which the first two Indians are not even citizens. So how do you have a body of law for three different types of Indians, y'all? The first Indian, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, is a sovereign. The second Indian is dominated. The third Indian is completely not even an Indian anymore because he's a citizen. So he's not an Indian in actuality. He's become the foreigner. If he's a citizen, he has become what the foreigner was, with the foreigner's level of rights. Indians have the highest rights. The foreigner has the least of rights. The citizen has the least of rights compared to Indians. So I don't even know why he brings the 14th Amendment. But we are mentioned, but it's just a repeat where now they're trying to get the Indians not taxed to be citizens, because they know that that's the foreign one. They should have just said Indian tribes for that 14th Amendment, because those are the ones who are dominated. They should have kept it with just the Indian tribe, because the Indian not taxed is not part of any of this. So how do you pull him into being a citizen when he's not taxed, he's not represented in Congress, and he's not enumerated? So how can he be a citizen? It's more likely that the Indian tribes will be treated like citizens. So Article 1 of the 14th Amendment, which exclude Indians not taxed from the counts for apportioning direct taxes and representatives to Congress among the states. See? We don't have representation in Congress. We're not counted in the census. We are not citizens. We were supposed to be the ones that the citizens were in commerce with. But if they dissolve us into citizens, that means they just taken your land. You don't have to sell it to them. They took it. They're making the money and you are paying them taxes. That is absolute insanity. And don't tell me about no damn tax exemption. We're not supposed to be tax exempt. We're simply supposed to be not taxed point blank, period. Again, Indians not taxed are not under federal. Tax exempt Indians are under federal. Indians are not supposed to be under federal. The third reference is a grant of power to Congress in the Commerce Clause to regulate. You see? Oh my God. So now he's admitting that the third mention in the 14th Amendment, the third reference is a grant of power to Congress in the Commerce Clause. See, they reference it. Okay, of Article 1 to regulate commerce with Indian tribes. It's Indian tribes that are being dominated because they're the civilized ones. Once you become civilized, oh, great, now we can dominate you. So when you were uncivilized, you were actually sovereign. But once you became civilized, now you're dominated by the feds? So what's the point of being an Indian at all? The phrase so here's where we wanted to land the plane. And I think we're going to leave it here because, it's already taken too long, I think. The phrase Indians not taxed was not a grant of tax exemption. Tax exempt is when you're under federal. Indians not taxed is how you enter the whole shebang. You entered in the on the playing field as an Indian not taxed. You didn't get it from the government. You walked in that way. You walked in the building being not taxed. You walked in the building. You walked in the United States building, not taxed, not enumerated, and not represented in Congress. So you were only visiting to make an agreement, right? Actually, no, that's not exactly true because again, they sort of just left you out because you were not civilized. So really, it's the tribes that they're looking at because it's the tribes that have the most land more than a single Indian, right? So they broke us up and then they dominated the tribes and hoped that we fell into the states. Okay. And that seems to be exactly what happened because there's no such thing as Indians not taxed. This is what has to be resurrected because right now there's no such thing as Indians not taxed. They're trying to gaslight you with tax exemption, but they don't want to deal with Indians not taxed, right? We were supposed to just meld into the states and forget that we were Indians and become Black. Again, I say if we built this system, there would be no requirement that we be Black. If we built this system like Indians are saying we did, we would not have changed ourselves to Black, would we? So that's another thing. They're trying to get us to be the ones who caused our own demise. No, we kicked you out years ago. So when you came back, what you came back with was a ball of confusion. And now you're saying that we created this system so that you could come back here and just wipe the floor with our ass, right? Saying that we want to be called Black. If we built this system, we would still call ourselves Indians, y'all. That's how I know we didn't build this system because this system got Blacks and whites. And no Indian ever got up and said, we're not Black and white. We're Indians. So the Indians that they're trying to say built this would be the Iroquois Confederacy. But the Iroquois Confederacy does not speak for all Indians. And the Iroquois Confederacy, even they can choose to be full Indians again if they're even interested in that. Yes, they're mixed with Moors, just like the 5 civilized tribes, and probably even Indians outside of the civilized tribe. But again, all Indians have a choice, and I think it's a duty to stand for Indians alone. Why? Because Moors have a homeland. this is the only one Indians get, called America. And they're trying their best to make it not our home anymore. This is what the Moors do with Indians. And then they want to bring everybody else from every other country here. This is something that Moors want, not Indians. We're not getting paid, so why would we want it? We're not getting any payment from these foreigners crowding into our country. So who is? The Black nobility is, okay? And they pay the highest cut to people who appear to be quote unquote white. So they traffic all these other races here. Those other races, if they don't look white, they get, basically downgraded. And it's only the more encourages Caucasians to be the face of the corporate takeover of American Indians' land. So that the Moor, with his blackness, can hide in the shadows and whisper. The phrase Indians not taxed was not a grant of tax exemption. Rather, it described the status of Indians at the time the Constitution was written. Indians were not taxed because generally they were treated as outside the American body politic. They were not United States citizens. And, okay, we're going to have to read that over and over. Indians think that they're supposed to be citizens and Indians. But not all Indians believe that. So those are the Indians that we're talking to, okay? We're not trying to start nothing with no Indians, right? We're trying to get Indians who want the real deal, the full deal. That's what we need. All Indians have that option, but some Indians are very much already made up their mind that they prefer to be known as citizens. That never worked for us as Blacks. It's not going to work for us as Indians either. That's the delusion that is being taken on by anyone who thinks that, oh, now that I'm an Indian, being a citizen is going to work for me. It's going to degrade your Indian part. And if you're two things, you're going to be the worst of those two things in this system. This system likes to make duplicates. But then the thing being duplicated, that's going to diminish, and the duplicate is going to really, that they're going to dominate you with the duplicate, like they do with your capital letter name. They are dragging that poor thing, asking it for money. Pay us, pay us, pay us. That's your doppelganger. Once they make a double of you, that double gets abused, but it's going to affect the real you. That's why Indians don't need to be dubious. You got to be single-minded. You can't coddle Moors. They have a homeland that they can go to if they want to, and they need to want to. But Indians only have one place. That is the Americas. And we should roam freely in all of the Americas. As Indians, we don't need no passport, right? Well, we're not supposed to have a passport because we're not under this federal system. So once we organize, we'll have our own, and that will say we are free to travel anywhere outside of North America. We can go to Canada freely. Yeah, Canada. Hello. When I posted my video with my declaration, it was Canadians that were. I had to cut the comments off because I was tired of Canadians jumping in looking like Moo the Fool. It's like, do you Canadians need to be reminded that you're actually in America? Now, I know your Morris daddy done convinced you that, oh, Canada is a foreign country to America. But if you just open your rose-tinted glass eyes, you'll see that Canada is America, okay? So I, as an Indian, yes, I'm going to step into Canada when I feel it, and I'm going to do me, okay? That is America. Now, if I go to France, then you could get all upset and then you be the boss, right? But while you're here, Indians are the boss. Indians can go anywhere they want in any of these Americas. Just respect the Indians there. That's all we ask Indians. Just try to be respectful of your real brother, not the Moorish adopted one. But Indians are free to travel. And when we create our documentation, we're going to have the entire map of all the Americans and say, this is where I be going when I feel like it. Y'all going to look at me like, well, in your world, you're going to call me foreign, but this is my world. So, but you're going to look at me like I'm a foreign dignitary, but I'm going to be saying, nope, you're the foreigner, I'm the dignitary. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. Okay. So, yes, that's what's going to be available to Indians once they get out of the system. Now, when we start doing what we need to do, we won't need their licenses. That's what the deal is, y'all. I don't know why people want to stay slaves. I'll never understand it, yo. I know it's a conditioning, but it's one that we really need to get rid of. The doctrine of discovery was repudiated. All the cases that built their little case on the doctrine of discovery, that shit just fell to the ground as of March 30th, 2023. There is no legal backing for the John Marshall cases any longer. What does that mean? That means right now, if those cases were to be reevaluated within the light of the doctrine of the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery, everything that was taken from Indians would go back. Not, but that would include all of the America, not just, So if Indians got together, we would have access to all of our resources, and then we would charge for the use of our resources. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works, y'all. In any other country, basically, if it's not too, uh eat up as much as we are, then that's how it would go. You have to pay those as a foreigner. You don't get a free meal ticket in somebody else's country, but you should get a free meal ticket in your country if if it's especially if it's got a bunch of foreigners in it. They have to pay to live here because they have a homeland. So originally the idea was they just become Indian, right? They would adopt our ways, and but then we would have some form of tribute, but it would benefit the people. It wouldn't be like it is now where Indians are paying all the foreigners, and like again, you got the Chinese restaurant. They take that money home and build up their country, right? Indians are supposed to build up this country, and we're supposed to be the ones doing that. So therefore, we have to make sure no one is being destructive in our country. So we would be the ones that have to, uh, you know, benefit, like Chinese man is benefiting, and able to make a living. That's how it's supposed to be for Indians. We're supposed to be like the Chinese man, making money off of selling our stuff, and then it only being circled back to our community, like in the Chinese community and any other community that's here, making a living off of Indians' resources. We have to get the first cut, and then you. That's how it would go. But instead, we have a nobility here, and they're getting the first of everything from Indians, from foreigners. They're taking a lot from us because they're supporting their own, but that's not us. That's why we don't need these nobility. That's why we got rid of them in the first place, y'all. We realized it wasn't about them serving us anymore. It was about them dominating us. I guess somewhere originally a priesthood was a service type of deal, serving the people. But then the priest said, you know what? We some fancy ass Negroes. We got lifestyles to maintain. So how about we start like charging and stuff? If they want to get to heaven, that's like what, $500? They want to get out of purgatory, what, $1,000? That's what the priest was doing, y'all. That's what they devolved into. So you know that these men have lost their minds, right? And then they want to come and dominate you. Oh, that's not going to work. They had folks paying indulgences, y'all. This is the Christian church, y'all. Like they're doing right now. Come on now, somebody got to talk about it. Okay, so we're about to run into that part where I start going cross-eyed, and I didn't even realize I was going cross-eyed. I tried, but I put up a good front, y'all. I think I did, because that what I was reading was crazy, but I sort of smoothed it out. But now I want to revisit it. That's why we're reading this. The phrase Indians not taxed was not, I'm sorry, we're going to start again. I'm sorry. Was not a grant of tax exemption. Rather, it described the status of Indians at the time the Constitution was written. Indians were not taxed because generally they were treated as outside the American body politic. They were not United States citizens. That's the part we want to focus on. When we have Indians saying, we citizens, we built this, we citizens, we built this, we were citizens, we built this. No, 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 and no, and no. I feel like I'm having deja vu right now. And I think I said that in one of my videos because I read, of course, because I keep reading this thing. Of course, I'm having deja vu. But see, yeah, I just went deep into a deja vu moment, y'all. That's kind of scary. They were not United States citizens. Okay, I just want Indians to meditate on that for a few minutes because, we got Indians saying that we were, but we have people who know better saying that we were not. So I just need to focus on that highlighted blue area. American Indians were not United States citizens. Now, this is something talking about what? The Constitution. Okay, so they're basing what they just said on Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, right? Exactly. So now we lost our blue highlight, but let's go back there again. This in an article on the Constitution, we read that constitutionally, if we built this system, how come we don't understand what the Constitution is saying? Now, I know we didn't build it, but I'm just saying, here's another piece of evidence showing the blaring uh, uh, cognitive dissonance of Indians saying, we built this system, but we don't know that we're not supposed to be citizens in it. Ooh. You see how the Moors got us looking crazy right now? Got me looking so crazy right now. You see? When we separate, we'll get clarity. If we built this system, we would have never called ourselves citizens because we were Indians according to the Constitution. So if we built this system and the Constitution and all of that, then why are we confused about who we are in it? The system and the Constitution. We're confused. See, it's the civilized tribes talking or they're teaching. And when the civilized tribes teach, they got a Moorish version of the story. So it starts to make me looking crazy right now, right? But people who read the Constitution and know what it's saying, since the ones who said they made it don't know what it's saying, they're saying that we were not United States citizens. So are Indians ever supposed to be citizens according to the Constitution? No, they're not. I mean, even in the Commerce Clause, they're still called Indians, Indian tribes. They're not called citizen tribes. right? Am I saying something crazy? Huh? So Indians are Indians and citizens are citizens, right? And they're two separate things, right? Because generally speaking, citizens were foreigners, right? Exactly, y'all. Citizenship was for foreigners of the white status. And then they created 14th Amendment citizens because they started realizing they need to get rid of Indians and pull them out of their position and make them like they're foreigners. Again, that's what the Moors do. They make you foreigners because as soon as you say you're a Moor, boom, you're a foreigner. Now you got to talk about your ancestry in Mali. Um, we were not governed by ordinary federal and state legislation. That's when it started getting crazy because we were not governed by any federal and state legislation, y'all. If we're sovereign, as this article said, a true sovereign is not governed by ordinary federal and state legislation because he's sovereign. An Indian is sovereign. Tribal laws. What tribal laws? If you're talking about federal tribal laws, they are not by Indians. They're for civilized tribes. The civilized tribes have, become this dual entity, part federal government, part Indian, and then the federal is really calling all the shots because as an Indian, they are not calling anything but themselves Moorish. Tribal laws treaties with the United States. And I'm sorry. Yeah. So those treaties were bogus, right? And the United States knows that, okay? Tribal laws bogus. They don't make our laws. So if we're governed by tribal laws, that's not why would you have me listed with federal and state? Tribal is not federal or state. And tribal is not even treaties. So why are you saying we're governed? Because you're talking about federal laws, tribal laws. You're talking about federal Indian laws, which, as we always say, Peter DeRico, the established attorney who saw the light, he says they're federal anti-Indian laws. So, okay, let's move because the next sentence is where the confusion comes in. Only the few, this is where I read it and I did the best I could do with it. And I think I did a good job, but I wanted to revisit it. Excuse me, because it sounds crazy. Only the few Indians who had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate for counting in constitutionally mandated apportionment. That's after I was watching the video and when I read this part, I realized, oh my gosh, even this article is talking crazy. So let's try to break this down, y'all. Um, he's saying only the Indians that had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate for counting to be taxed. So what I realized is he just talked us into a full 360 circle. Because didn't we understand, even in part of this article, that Indians who were not in tribes were Indians not taxed? So what is the confusion? The confusion is you can't have it both ways. You're saying that Indian tribes are the ones that get all federally infiltrated, but Indians not taxed. Didn't we read that they're not taxed for apportionment or they're not apportioned for taxes and that they're not represented in Congress? and that they're not counted. So how do you go from that to this sentence? Because Indians not taxed are the ones who severed their tribal relations. So if they're living in a state without a tribe, the Constitution said that they are Indians not taxed. Why does the Constitution mention Indians not taxed? It's because they're the Indians that are living in states. Now, again, wherever an Indian walks, he's not going to be part of any of these foreign. He's going to walk like the land is like it was when he was here by himself. So when he walks, it's like we're not bound by. This is what I'm trying to say. You like, okay, y'all ain't gonna like this, but we have to use this analogy. When you're playing chess, right now, I don't play chess. I'm just saying I know some of the rules of chess. They say the queen can move anywhere, right? She can go anywhere. But say the foreigner is a king, he can only move in angles. Like he can only move in certain ways, but the queen can move anywhere on the chessboard, right? Is that how it goes? If I'm getting that wrong, I guess you all tell me. But from what I recall, a queen can move anywhere, any way on a chessboard. Now, we don't want to be on any chess or checkerboards, right? Because that's Moorish, right? And they do not stand in their squares, else they wouldn't be in America point blank, period, right? So when they talk about standing in their square, that's some bullshit, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes. But anyway, we're just using it as an analogy. That's what an Indian is in America. You can move anywhere you want to, just like the queen in the chess game. Now the king can't do it, so that's why we're not using the king. Now the brother saying, "Well, I'm not a queen, I'm a king." Yeah, I'm just going by the analogy of the chess game, right? Because we have the same ability as that piece called the queen in the chess game. You can move anywhere. That when Indians get their head on right, the freedom that they're going to experience is going to be something they ain't never seen before since colonization. So no, there'll be when we go to an airport, we're gonna pull out our Indian, we might call it Indian not tax for the time being until the colonizer is no longer here. So, but because there's a constitutional reference, we might as well use it, right? Because that's what we're showing them. But really, the doctrine of discovery really repudiated even the Constitution, y'all. It really did because that's what was built after the doctrine of discovery. So if the doctrine of discovery is gone now, everything that's built on it has to come falling down, right? The only reason why we have the United States or any states here is because of the doctrine of discovery. So if the doctrine of discovery is no longer valid, anything that's holding an Indian back from being a totally, completely free Indian, even the civilized tribes Indians are have this freedom available to them once they get out of their Moorish frame of mind because they do have Indian as their original bloodline, whereas the Moors have Africa as their original bloodline and Europe. So that's why Indians don't want to be Moors because it makes you a secondary when you should be primary in your land. So once Indians get our shit together, we're going to start making our own paperwork. And what we're going to have is an Indian, again, we could call it Indian not tax. Uh, uh, it's not a birthright. Indian not tax, birthright, Indian not tax, uh, travel, voucher, or whatever we want to call it, right? That means Mexico won't be able to keep us out. Canada won't be able to keep us out. No place in South America will be able to keep us out. We're the original people of the land. What do you mean keep us out? You lucky you ain't we ain't sent your ass home where you really come from. So that's one of the major things that will happen when Indians decide that they want to be free again, but you have to be a total only Indian to be free. That's the only way the ancestors will allow it. Because if your mind is clouded with Moorish, well, you're going to hold yourself back because you're going to be limited by the Moorish mindset. But your ancestors are here to say, if you break out of that, America opens up to you like a freaking rose anywhere, and you can live freely. It's sort of like what they do with foreigners right now in America. They come here and they get the works. The governments allow them to live freely, complimentary. That's going to be like that for all Indians. Then the colonizer are going to say, oh my God, this is not my vision. And he's going to say, let me take my ass back home. I could do this shit in my home, but there's too many niggas over here to be living free. How am I going to get paid? That's the colonizer's problem. That's his problem. The idea is we want you to feel free to go home. That's the whole point, yo. If you're living off of my subjugation while on my land, it's not going to work for you, y'all. It's not going to work anymore. You have zero right to do that. Go home, and if you want a monarchy where you live, have at it, yo. But we kicked that ass out centuries ago. We never wanted it. We never want to be dominated by a priesthood that dominates some nobility. Then they proceed to dominate. Both of them dominate us. Only the few Indians who had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities. They mean the states, y'all. Come on, stop talking in freaking codes. You, first of all, it's still my land. So you're living, once again, I'm not living in your state. You are on my ancestral land. I can remain an Indian. Y'all the one that got it confused. You're not supposed to have me melt into your little system so you can own my land, y'all. And then again, if Indians do, for the first however many years, Indians just have to get everything for free. Why? Because we have not yet taken control of our land. So therefore, those who are profiting off of it, you got to give me my stuff for free. You get to take, the wealth of my country back to your homeland, squirrel it away, and live like kings when you go back home. Meanwhile, I'm still here, ain't seen a penny. That has to change. So what? That if you can't pay me, that means everything for me is free. Now I'm not asking you to break the bank or nothing, but unfortunately, it may have the effect of breaking your bank when I'm not paying you no more, and I shouldn't be paying you. How many Indians agree with that? Do you think that's far-fetched? Well, again, think about the illegal immigrants who got a free meal ticket, didn't have to pay for nothing, right? Indians, that is available to you now, especially because it's been brought to the light of day for illegal immigrants. And I'm telling you from my experience, this is also what state nationals are seeking. They're seeking a voucher to pay for all what they believe they shouldn't be paying for. Because their daddy done told them that this land is your land, this land is your land. But when Indians show up, all of a sudden that's going to be a different tune, right? But for now, the state nationals, as y'all know, I was involved with the state nationals. I told you the whole story, basically. I sure did. So I know for a fact because I was with them and I still am somewhat connected to them. Again, until Indians get our shit up and running, yeah, we're going to have to go with, I'm not saying the citizenship though, y'all. Citizenship ain't the way. That's not helping us. We have to be above citizens, regular federal citizens. That's for slaves. The federal citizenship was for slaves. The federal overrode the states just so they can have access to those, what they call slaves. Then they made Indians the same slaves, right? But Indians are not supposed to be. But anyway, I'm just saying, if you're a citizen, that was something that was created for slaves, what they call slaves, which was the Black Europeans, indentures, and probably a few of our children that we would have never, but the farm would have went back to them. So that's why I know it doesn't make sense for us to have had been using our children as farmers, because the land would have went to them and the government didn't want us to have any land. So when we hear Dane saying that, there was legislation that after a certain amount of time, the land goes to the indenture, we have to assume that the indenture must have been a foreigner, because this country, all it's doing is trying to take us off of our land, right? So they made sure that your land went to foreigners, not Indians. If it was our children working the land would go back to them and it would stay in the family. And they wouldn't be called Black. Okay? So this might have to be the last point of this video because I don't want it to be too long. Only the few Indians who had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate. This has to be incorrect. Now, actually, we do have one more slide. So how are we going to look at this? Keep this in mind if you can, because we have to go to the next screenshot. Maybe if there's a way I could keep this, because we're going to debunk this. Only the few Indians who had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate for counting in the constitutionally mandated apportion. So they're saying that once we left our tribe, we're supposed to be taxed because now we're Black. That's what he's not saying. Oh, he should say only those Indians who were reclassified Black had to start being treated like citizens. But this doesn't make sense when you read Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, which says that those were Indians who were not in tribes. They were just in the states, but the states couldn't count them. You see? Where were Indians not taxed? They were in states, because that's why they had to make a distinction to not tax us or count us. In other words, see that Indian in that state right there? Don't include him in our shenanigans. So now to read this in blue, it doesn't make sense. Unless he's talking about the Indians who were reclassified, which we were all misclassified Black. You see, another thing, what I liked about what I said in the last video is, then why did you reclassify me? If I'm an Indian and I'm supposed to be mandated in your apportionment for taxes and representatives in Congress, then why are you calling me Black? You call me Black because Indians are not supposed to be. That's the point I'm trying to make. You had to call me Black because Indians who severed their tribal relations and lived in Indian communities were Indians not taxed. I'm sorry, non-Indian communities. In other words, in the state. I had to be reclassified Black to be, as he says, treated as appropriate for counting in constitutionally mandated apportionment. Well, the Constitution mandated that I was not paying taxes, Indian not taxed. So that apportionment didn't apply to me, but it would apply to Blacks, is what I'm trying to say. So in other words, the fast talking here, what it's not saying is, first, these Indians had to be misclassified Black because they were mandated to not be taxed or apportioned for representation. So that's why I read this and I realized, what did I just read? And it went over my head. He's saying Indians were appropriate for counting, for taxing, and representatives in Congress? Nope. What he didn't say here is this is after they were misclassified black, y'all. So that's how we can solve this problem. Indians were not citizens until they were misclassified black, because Indians are never supposed to be counted. That's why they don't want us to be Indians, y'all. Because as blacks, they can do whatever the hell they want. But they can also do that with civilized tribes because they created civilized tribes. They recreated Indians into civilized Indians. Civilized means you do what your master tells you to do because he's the one that civilized you. So I never got to this document because this is what I really wanted to get to, y'all. This was what, and now it's very late in the game, and I done forgot that I even wanted to get to this. This document was put out by the Census Bureau, this document. And you'd have to look it up. Just look up conditions. Sorry, condition of Indians not taxed and Indians. I'm, I'm eat my coffee, y'all. It's like 5, 6 in the morning. Condition of Indians taxed and Indians not taxed. I want to thank Dr. Tracy. Now, Dr. Tracy has not said that, in other words, she's not taking sides, but she saw one of my videos and she said, you should read this. Basically, she said it's saying what it sounds like I'm hearing you say in your videos. I wanted I want to send a heartfelt ancestral thanks to Mrs. Dr. Tracy uh, and her channel, which I have learned a great deal from. Dr. Tracy, when you sent this to me, it for me was like what they call the cornerstone. This was exactly what I needed to see. And I am so grateful that the ancestors put Dr. Tracy in my path for her to have the presence of spirit to point me toward this document, which I had never seen. So if you get a chance, please do visit Dr. Tracy's channel. She is a plethora of whatever she looks into. She's just going to be thorough. She helped me a lot in the religious aspect in terms of speaking of the ancient Egyptian characters, namely the deity known as Set. Dr. Tracy went so far in her research with Set that it was beyond anything I could even begin to fathom. She found Set behind so many machinations. She found documented stuff that would point to a connection with this deity. Somewhere in there, she also saw the connection with the Moors and this deity known as Set. So that was I just can't explain how enlightening that was. So I would just ask I'm not a huge channel, but I would ask my viewers who are interested, the ones who are truly here, because I'm starting to feel, I could be wrong, but I feel like my viewership, it might be more, I don't even want to go there. But those are watching y'all more than anyone. Uh, and I can't explain it, but it just seems to me, well, YouTube also has a lot to do with viewership, so I can't pinpoint, but I guess I really what it boils down to is even if you get only less than 100 views, it really would be good to hear from folks because it's looking to me like there's more people just watching, you know, which makes me think maybe those are not Indians. Maybe it's people that want to see what Indians are talking about. You know what I'm saying? Uh, and because I would think Indians would be more willing to share information that they think is good, whereas someone who's just want to see what you're talking about, they ain't gonna share that shit, you know. But so yeah, Indians, even when we talk like this, even our enemy knows that the ancestors are strong right now and in this age. So really, it's our time to start, making IDs that show that we are taking the authority as birthright people of this land. We don't need permission from foreign entities, and they can't retaliate because it's, as we saw the word used, mandated. Well, we don't really go by mandates, but I'm just saying the Constitution is pointing to our sovereignty. And once again, this document that we're looking at, a gift from Dr. Tracy. It really was. I just can't, it just, there's no words. With Dr. Tracy, I tend to run out of words because I don't know how do you compliment someone when you don't have when you already use every word that you can think of. So anyway, I hope to, excuse me, get a cup of coffee is what I need to do. But I hope to link Dr. Tracy's channel because I really think people who are on the verge of maybe trying to have a breakthrough, breaking out of colonizers' religion, I think Dr. Tracy might be very helpful with that, with her deep dives on the deity known as Set. She is great with that. And other, I'm saying that's my thing, but she puts just the yeoman's effort into anything she looks at, not just Set, but for me, the Set thing really, oh boy, it just really, uh, no words, no words. So let's try to, now this is 16 pages, but Dr. Tracy sent this to me, and I started reading. I didn't read the whole thing, but when I got to what I think the gist of what she wanted me to see, I hope. it was pretty early on. So I kind of stopped there and started doing my little praise dancing because I saw what I needed to see. Okay. So I think we'll read up to that point because there is a confusion about Indians taxed and so-called Indians not taxed. Now we know I'm sorry, Indians, so-called Indians taxed, I should say, and Indians not taxed. Okay, so the Indians taxed are going to be civilized. The wild Indians are not taxed, but they've been labeled black. So that's why they're paying taxes. So let's read. Again, I'll have to link where I got this from. It was part of the census. So this is official, y'all. This is official. Thank you, Dr. Tracy. This is very official. So this is from basically the Census Bureau from what I when I looked it up, and I will link that as well. Uh as YouTubers know, YouTube is getting really jiggy with we can't even pin comments. The content creators can no longer pin comments in their comment section. You know, when you pin a comment, it stays the first comment. It never moves down. It's always going to be the first comment of all comments. Do you know you have to do that now? You have to get some kind of you got to show your ID to the camera. It's like, really? Y'all don't know that this is me posting this. You're gonna act like you don't know that me, the content creator, Heru, the copper color god, you don't think that I'm the only one that can pin a post, so you're gonna validate. I have to show that I'm me. So what that means generally is them to me, it's just something, it's so unnecessary, right? So in other words, I can't highlight a comment that I want to be seen on my video anymore. Well, thankfully, I don't have that many viewers, so the comment can stay there. Usually, I have that many commentators, I should say, so that my comment can stay at the top of the comments. So now I just have to try to use the description box because I'm just not so far I haven't found my way to taking a picture of my ID. They're saying now to pin a comment, you have to take a picture of yourself to validate that it's you, or put your ID to the camera and take a picture of your ID. This is regulating commerce, y'all. This is what regulating commerce leads to. These kind of unnecessary things. It's just so far, I haven't done it because I figure, you know what, I'll just have to say it in a description box. If I can't pin my comment, I have to say it in the and probably they'll probably start making that impossible too. Oh, you got to show your ID before you can pin a comment. Really though? This is regulation, y'all. This is what regulation does. And I'm trying to tell you that's how they are dealing with federal tribes. They're regulating them to into oblivion. But yeah, I would like to be able to pin Dr. Tracy's channel or something, but I'll do it in a description box. Um, but I found out that I can no longer pin a comment on face, take a picture, or uh, put my ID to the camera. I just find it just makes me feel very uncomfortable even to have to do that. Like, YouTube knows it's me, right? Because only content creators can pin their comments. Only so I guess it's almost like they're afraid that someone else might. Well, if someone else pins something I don't want, I can delete it. YouTube. So why do you need? I'm not gonna even go there, y'all. As a content creator, right? I can delete comments that I don't want. I can hide comments I don't want to be seen. So then why would that power not, the power to pin a comment? So I'm trying to let me just figure this thing out right here, y'all, because it's been on my mind, but so why is it necessary for me as a content creator to show ID to pin a comment that I wrote? I can only, I believe I can only pin. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta look at that. Can I pin other people's comments? Well, yeah, I should be able to, but I tend to pin my own comments because I might have a link that I want to provide, or I might have something I need everyone to read or something like that, So I really like most content creators who pin, we know how valuable it is to pin a comment so that it stays at the top of all comments. So why is there a problem doing that? Like, again, the only thing I can think of is YouTube is saying, well, we're not sure who pinned a comment on your channel, but I'm the only one who has the power to do that. Yeah, well, we don't know. It could be somebody that hacked your account and they're pinning something. It's not that serious, YouTube. Because if that happened, again, if somebody pinned a comment that I didn't want to pin, I can unpin it because I don't need YouTube to have to, we don't need that kind of regulation. I think it's just a way to, and then again, I don't know. Do other YouTubers have the same thing? It could be that they have ways now that only certain YouTubers can't pin comments, right? So if you're a YouTube content creator or whatever, if you can let me know, do you have to show an ID to pin a comment? Because I do. And now I know that something could be happening to you that maybe other YouTubers are not experiencing. So that's the whole thing about direct marketing and all that. They could do stuff like that. Direct only you, certain type of way. And meanwhile, other people ain't having the experience that you're having. So uh, I might have to ask Dr. Tracy if she can tell me, if she can pin comments without having to show an ID. Anyway, let's let that go, y'all. But well, we're gonna read. Let's read what they have to say and see if we could make sense of that last thing we highlighted in blue, where they're saying, oh, only Indians who were severed their tribes were up for taxation. Well, after you called us black, we were, but as Indians, you shouldn't have been taxing us. Okay, so the condition of Indians taxed and Indians not taxed. And wouldn't you know it, at this moment, I have to take a break. I will be right back. I'm so sorry. Let's pause for a minute. I shall return. We are back. Um, and so again, the reason why we are being very repetitive is because I think we really have to help all Indians, civilized and uncivilized, of those who are interested. Some Indians may want to continue in a system, but what's going to happen is when Indians stand up, the system is going to have to take a back seat. And then I think those Indians are going to realize, well, why should we take a back seat? If we stand on Indian, we don't have to take a back seat, but the Moors have to take a back seat. And that's what they don't want to do. The whole point of them coming here was to take over, y'all, not to share. If they didn't come to take over, we would never be called black. I hope Indians understand what I just said. If the Moors were our friends, they would have seen to it that we never got called black. They wouldn't even use that term on us. They would just call us what we are, American Indians. And they would say, well, I'm coming to mix in with my kinfolk or skinfolk because we are, they believe we're one and the same, right? Okay, so but even in that, you have to admit that we were American Indians. You never wanted to admit that. That's how I know that the Moors are not our friends, but they have, mesmerized and charmed a lot of Indians. But again, those Indians are become blind to the fact that almost all your people had to be called black for Moor to feel at home in your land. They only want you, the ones they're directly impregnating or coupling with, that you're the special Indian and you're quote unquote civilized by him. Because the Moor, again, is the only thing, let's put it this way, the one thing that all Moors have in common is that they cling to Abrahamic faith, y'all. And that is one thing that they can't say that ain't true about, because it's the truth. Now, they might talk outside of their created religion, but that's only to pull you in. But the one thing that all Moors have in common is that they are very Abrahamic faith driven. They couldn't be without it. They need it more than the people who are under it need it. Those people that they put in those, roles. There's nothing wrong with the people themselves. Okay. It's just that they're put in a position where they enter in a fight that was already predestined by the Moors. Because when the Moors arrive, you have to fight with your people. That's exactly what happened to Indians. And I'm sure that's exactly what happened to anyone else who have taken on the Moorish ideas of religion. You end up being in an internal fight with somebody that's probably was there on that land. And then the Moors are trying to get, you to get that under subjugation. So that's what Moors have in common. They use religion as a means to take over the birthrights of other people who were there before the Moors arrived, or people who are, influenced by the Moors, or the priests of that became known as Moors. They're not just the enemy of American Indians. At their core, they're the enemy of every living thing, I should say, man or woman on the face of the earth, because they've come to colonize and indoctrinate. And then when they leave, you're going to think they're the greatest thing that ever happened. Well, that's part of the indoctrination. Right now, they have Indians believing that Indians were citizens. No, you were citizens, Moors. You created citizenship for you and the people that you intended to take over our country. And then once you got rid of us, then you could be us, and then you would make sure you got paid. Whereas Indians ain't seeing a red cent. If Moors ever succeeded in getting rid of Indians, they would become us, y'all. That's why I know who our real and true detractor is. It's the one that can easily take your place before the face of the world. He will say, well, I married into these folks, and look, we look just the same. We could be twins, yo. So I'm the new boss in town. Okay? They didn't like slaves, but I do. It's like a horror film, y'all. I know there was a reason why I was so badly affected by the Stepford Wives. That movie threw me off, yo. I was no more good after the Stepford Wives, y'all. I thought that was the most horrible thing I had ever seen. The original one. See, they make a serious film, and then they gotta come back because they realize, oh, we done told too much, and then they make it like a joke. So then the next Stepford Wives that came out were like comedies and shit. Like, I mean, yeah, hee hee ha ha, but I'll never forget, never forget how very dismal the original story was. It was very it's a story that when you really let it'll mess you up. And I think as an Indian, it messed me up because that's what's happening to Indians. What's happening to the Stepford Wives in the original one, that's what's happening to Indians. And then you have civilized Indians that look like you, but there's something not right and they're off. And then you think you're crazy, but the truth is they're waiting for you to be transformed. They want you to be civilized, you know, and do the cooking and the cleaning, like in the Stepford Wives, that movie haunted me to no end. And really it was a spiritual thing because I think when I first saw the movie, something in me knew that there was something real about that movie. And for an Indian, again, what it is real Indians are being replaced by Stepford civilized Indians. And then the Stepford civilized Indians come and they think it's normal to be civilized and to do as your master wants you to do. Oh, I just love uh, the United States citizenship. It's just nothing like it. You're the king. You're the king. You say it, and you unturned Stepford wife is like, but yesterday, you was just like me the other day, and you didn't want this, and now you want it, and you're acting different, and you talk different, and you walk different. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's why the Stepford wives stuck with me because it's really happening to Indians. It's really actually happening. And then you watch them praise, you know, presidents like Trump and stuff, and it's like, oh God, is that what they want me to do? It's like they really have become programmed like the separate wives to everything this system does. It's just uh thing you like. What do you want to do? Anything you like. It's like, oh gosh, I got to get out of the little town of Stepford. Okay, so this will be the last thing we look at, but it was brought me to the video is because of this gift from Dr. Tracy. I can't thank her enough. Uh, Edition of Indians taxed and Indians not taxed. The separation of Indians from the general population in the conditions now prevailing in considerable portions of the country is exceedingly difficult and unsatisfactory. Again, this is from the Census Bureau. So when we forget who that for a while, Stepford Indians, um, the census is here to remind us the number of persons east of the Mississippi who would suggest to an enumerator by their appearance that they have any Indian blood is very small. Yeah, right. You would have to reclassify me black if that was the case. So stop lying, Census Bureau. You're lying right now because you've done turned me African. So now you can say that it's a small number of Indians in each state. Anyway, east of the Mississippi. That's where we were in large numbers. That's why the reclassification started in Virginia. Okay, it was a southern state. Uh, Enumerators would be likely to pass by many. Let's make this a little bigger, y'all, so we can all read this. Okay. The enumerators that they send out to count you in the census that came to your door would be likely to pass by many who had been identified all their lives with the localities where found. Yeah, well, we would have been there all our lives because they used to be our land before the states came. So, yeah, you're damn right we were there all our lives. It's our land. And who live like the adjacent whites without any inquiry as to their race, entering them as native born whites. Now, let's read that one more time because I'm kind of enumerators would be likely to pass by many who had been identified all their lives with the localities where found. So, in other words, oh, I'm in Virginia now. It's not Algonquin anymore. It's called Virginia. It's not Powhatan anymore. It's called Virginia. And who have lived like the adjacent. So they're trying to say you weren't quite mixed in with the whites. You were adjacent to them. They were right next door or across the street or whatever. So, but they're not right, not truly integrated, right? But they live like adjacent whites without any inquiry as to their race. That's how it was supposed to be in allegedly this system was for free persons, right? Whether you were black or white. But then the civil rights movement came and now you're all black and white because now they're going to give whites the upper hand and blacks are going to talk about they want to be a citizen. Yeah, but you're going to be a black citizen. But now I think Indians think, well, once we become Indian citizens, then we're gonna have arrived. No, no, you're not supposed to be a citizen, point blank, period. And they still would owe you Indians. In fact, that's the only time they would owe you as Indians. If you're part of the entity that owes you, they're gonna feel like you're part of me. You're getting everything I have to give. You got to say, no, I'm an Indian, and you took everything you got from me. But if you keep wanting to be part of the system, they feel like, well, no, that's what I wanted to say, y'all. That's what I wanted to say. I thought about it, and we'll get back to the article. But if you're a federal Indian, that means you agreed to something, right? So when you go to create yourself as an Indian and you come up as a 501c3, you're still like a federal Indian, like a federal tribe, even though they say you're not recognized, but you're all under federal domination, even if you're not recognized because you're a corporation and a government really controls corporation, right? So it made me wonder how legitimate can you really pursue reparations with an entity that said, but you already took the deal. In other words, that's why Indians have to get out of it because when you're in it and you become a federal product, a little extension of the federal, you can't really ask for reparations, y'all. Look at respectfully, because we don't discriminate against Caucasians on this channel because we know better. The ones who get it know better, right? But look at the way we're gonna use part of the Jewish story. when they saw themselves as a separate people, that is when they got reparations. So they weren't Germans, or they weren't really like, they didn't. What I'm trying to say is it was their distinction as a people separate from Germans that basically, when they took on their identity, apart from being Germans, then they moved to a landmass that they said to be of their origin. So Indians don't have to leave because we're already in our land of origin. But we do have to emphasize that we're not like any other people in the Americas as immigrants. So, can you really pursue reparations if you took the deal to be civilized? And the deal to be civilized is you got a reservation, you still have a tribe, even though I control it, and you still get to use the name Indian. You took a deal. So what I'm saying is, I started to question recently, are federal tribes and corporate tribes even entitled to reparations? Didn't y'all take a deal? I'm just asking. But I think who really would be entitled to reparations, and y'all let me know how you feel if I'm talking crazy. It's those Indians that were misclassified, right? So you really have a case because your Indian was removed from you. And by that happening, you became the toilet paper of every other quote unquote American, and especially the government. But when you follow the federal Indian model, which is to become a corporation, you're just like, you might not be recognized yet, but you are a federal tribe. When you're living under your master, he doesn't owe you anything because he's given you what you're going to get. Who he owes is those he wronged. And those he wronged are still called black to this day. In America, there should be nobody called black. So that's how we know who's owed reparations. The reparations question really is only about those called black. Corporate tribes are going to follow, again, they're going to be like a federally recognized tribe because you're following a federal protocol. Only Indians who are outside of that federal protocol have the real, they're really the ones who are due the reparations. Indian tribes took a deal. They are in agreement. They are even in agreement with some Indians being called uncivilized, right? So you took the deal that you're going to side with the colonizers' version of Indians. And you're going to say, yeah, those Indians are uncivilized and they're not like us. So, no, you could, we throw them to the wolves. Yeah. But those are the Indians that really deserve the best of any reparations, right? Because again, didn't civilized Indians take some kind of a deal to be civilized? They had to take on everything that slave master had for them to see. This is why I don't like Moors, y'all. Really, that's a Moor doing that to you, civilized tribes. And even though I'm speaking this way, I always maintain that you have options. All you have to do is revert to being 100% Indian, because that's how it was, y'all. When you came to America, you became an Indian. That's how it was because we had our, just like when you go to France, they want you to learn French, right? They prefer you learn French. That's how you show that you ain't come, you coming here to be one of us. That's how it's supposed to be with Indians. So when you go to another country, it's not so you could do you like this system will have you believe. They just tried to bury who was here so they you could say, well, you could come and do you because ain't nobody else here to stop you, right? And it's not about stopping, it's about respecting our the way we do things. When you go to China, you respect the way Chinese do things. You don't come there and say, no, I'm trying to do me over here, yo. You don't do that in any other country but America, y'all. You being encouraged to don't pay no attention to them black folks over there. Meanwhile, this system knows we're the Indians, and they're encouraging disrespect of the Indians, not the civilized ones, because they are down with the program. That's why I question, and I invite other Indians to share their opinions. How do civilized Indians get old reparations when they took a deal? Uncivilized Indians didn't take a deal. They were forced to be reclassified black. That's what the Moors have Indians doing to other Indians, yo. Black Moors. We were not infiltrated by a white king. King James was a Negro. This is a black man's construct, but we didn't create it. It was the Moors. Well, the Moors, once they mix in with you, they get to blame you for what they did. We'll keep saying that till it makes sense. So let's get back to the reading. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Um, yes, so enumerators entering them as native born whites. In other words, they're trying to say enumerators would pass by many who had been. So, in other words, there were some Indians who looked white, I guess. The mulattoes, right? The ones who they mixed in with the Moors so much, that they looking that they could pass for white, the imitation of life, right? So enumerators would be likely to pass by many who had been identified all their lives with the localities where found and who lived like the adjacent whites without any inquiry as to their race, entering them as native born whites. So they're saying the census taker would enter them. Why would the census taker enter them at all? Why can't they self-identify federal census takers? Yeah, because you're reclassifying us the way you want, right? Right. That's why you owe us. Right? Right. On the other hand, certain legal and proprietary claims let persons of very slight Indian blood connection or even pure whites at birth to call themselves Indians. Well, this country had no problem with $5 Indians, right? So why is the Census Bureau acting like, oh, we didn't want white people to be known as Indians? Oh, yes, you did. See, this is how they start to confuse what happened in the paper genocide. That's why I always say the I love ancestry.net used to be .com, but the I love ancestry.net, they spell it out what the paper genocide was about. But here they're going to act like, well, we didn't want whites to say that they was Indian. Yeah, but when you go to France, you have to become French, right? You're going to become French. You don't come there and still stay whatever you was, right? So that's what was supposed to happen in America. And Indians would run their run their run their show. You come here, then you must want to do as the Indians do. Well, they say when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But in America, they're not trying to live that way. Everywhere else in the world, they do it. That's what your Moors are doing, y'all. The Moors are trying to erase the existence of Indians in America. Okay? They want to say that they were here, but not the Indians. They look like us, but they were Moors. No, we weren't. No, we weren't. That's what the problem is with Moors, y'all. They can Stepford wife us, whereas Caucasians can't. That's why I can't discriminate or be racist toward whites, because I know that they're the least threat to my identity being snuffed out. And you need your identity to claim your birthright. So I'm not worried about Caucasians. I need to have that understood by my viewers. Now, the Moors, they want you to point fingers all at the quote unquote white man, right? And then you start blaming everything on the white man, forgetting that, again, King James was a whole Negro, right? Black European. He was not white, although he liked to portray himself that way. So, again, that helps the Moors to point fingers at Caucasian people. All the Moor did was steal what belongs to Indians. Let's put it this way: dress it, put those. Say now the Moors came, stole all your everything that makes you an Indian. He stole it, or whatever. Stole your clothes, your wealth. But he took that and hid it in the on the white man. And so he said, "Look what this man stole your stuff. Look what he did." And Indians fall for that every time, because we want to believe that we would never have folks that look like us do that. You'll grow up 1,000 times once you understand that that's exactly what's happening. And then the white person is standing there holding all the goods, right? That the Moor gave him, and the Moor standing there pointing at him, like the same Satan that he invented, right? But he's the Satan, right? He's the father of Satan. And then he blames man that he said he brought here to take Indians out. You got to read that book of Yaqub. You'll find out that 98, 97, 98% of Americans was supposed to be taken out by the quote unquote white man. This is what the Moors is telling us. That's what the white man's mission was. But who brought the white man here? Oh, that was us, the Moors. We did that. But what? You told on yourself, Moors. And I don't even think you realize that you did. In your book by your Muhammad's, you're telling us that the white man was made by you, and he was here to wipe out Americans. That's what you find in books that are rearing up American Indians to be part of the Nation of Islam. It's dirty work, y'all. Nasty work. Uh, okay. On the other hand, again, certain legal and proprietary claims led persons of very slight Indian blood connection or even pure whites by birth to call themselves Indians. That's exactly what the Moors want, by hereditary or acquired right. And there are those of pure white blood who wish to be called Indians. And they do it. And the civilized tribes allow it in order to share in pecuniary advantages. I guess they're talking about not taxed, right? Who are not acknowledged by any tribes. So there's some people, so they're trying to say, see, notice they have to use whites for this little scenario. Like they don't want whites to claim uh not taxed privileges, right? They acting like, no, we don't want whites to get this kind of treatment. It's blacks you don't want to be Indians not taxed, if anybody, because you know that those are the real Indians. These Indians for revenue, as they might be called, constitute a perplexing element to the courts. They shouldn't be, if they're Indians, they shouldn't be in your courts, and you know that. If they're not represented in Congress, they're not paying taxes. What jurisdiction does this government have over them? Oh, because we wrote them in the Constitution. That just by writing their name in the Constitution, that makes us have jurisdiction. Get out of here with that mess, y'all. No, that's not what does it, y'all. Sorry, no. Um, it constitutes a perplexing element to the courts, to the Indian. I'm sorry, to the Indian office. There's an Indian office. There shouldn't be, unless you're talking about civilized tribes only, and they are. So, and correction, they are talking about federal Indians, not uncivilized Indians. So, in other words, you're an uncivilized Indian, so I have to take away your identity and call you black. So then, isn't that a way of still, quote unquote, civilizing me? Because I'm still going to fall, once I'm black, I'm going to fall under your civil codes, right? Or your civil rules and federal rules and state rules. So you're still trying to civilize Indians, but you figure, well, we don't want you to get the pecuniary advantages of not paying taxes. We want that money. We don't want you, but we want your money. How about that? Yeah, that's what it is, y'all. Because there's more of us, they get more money. There's more Indians in America than any other people. They couldn't live without, they couldn't exist or be here without tapping into us, to getting them to us to pay them for them being here. That just, it just vexes my spirit when I talk it out like that and realize this is a real thing. These Indians for revenue, as they might be called, how what do you mean for revenue? You mean so they don't have to pay you revenue because Indians are not supposed to be paying you? So you don't want there to be too many Indians, right? Let's call them black. Anyway, um, they constitute a perplexing element to the courts. Shouldn't be in court. To the Indian office, to the census office. We should not be a problem to the census office because the Constitution says Indians are not enumerated. So census, if we're a perplexing element, well, you need to relieve yourself of being so perplexed because the Constitution says Indians are not enumerated. Census, but this is the census writing this. And to everyone who attempts to deal accurately with conditions of Indians, the conditions of Indians. Well, stop renaming us and then you could deal accurately with us, dummy. This is especially true in the States. Okay, here's where we're coming. I think we're coming on it right here, y'all, in the next paragraph. We're not going to go much further because I'm going to post, try to post a link to this. But the major part is coming up right now, okay? This is especially true in the states where those of pure Indian blood have almost or wholly disappeared in modern conditions. So they think that once we become modern, we stop being Indian. That's what that's a colonizer's dream, y'all. Unfortunately, it's not the truth of the situation. No matter what an Indian does, he will always be an Indian unless there's a colonizer trying to get him to misclassify himself and give him a whole new history as an African. So let's read this foolishness, but it's telling us the truth of the situation. This is especially true in the states where those of pure Indian blood have almost or wholly disappeared. In my, no, no, no. An Indian never disappears. He stands out like a sore thumb because what? He's not, quote unquote, what you call white. So an Indian will never, we tried to disappear, but y'all won't let us, right? In other words, because we thought we were black, we tried to be like everybody else, right? We just black, there's some black people, some white people. We just try to live our life and be one of many people. But this system won't let us do that. So it is you, system, that are stopping it, causing it, and trying then not to act like you didn't cause it. They are not, okay. It is strongly emphasized in the southeast part of the United States because that's where a lot of us are, y'all. And that's also those states were the states of the Constitution. Now, all other states west of the Mississippi, they weren't bound to this United States like the South was. And the South, when they figured out what was happening, they tried to break away. And then this government made them adopt the 14th Amendment. That's another way we know we were not citizens, y'all. See, Indians in the South or federal tribes keep saying that we were citizens, not until the 14th Amendment, because that's what you had to adopt after they crippled you by pulling out the indentures. Then they surrounded the South and said, if you want to come back, because now you need money because we done took away your indentures. Now you really need help with that farm, that all that land. It don't feel too good to have all that land now, right? All them crops is dying without the indentures we gave you and then snatched away, right? And now you're trying to use your now you're trying to use your children, right? And they hate it, right? So we're gonna grab them too. This is some nasty work, y'all. Dirty, nasty work. So Indians in the South were not citizens. They had to adopt the 14th Amendment after the North brought them to their knees. We were not citizens. I wish Indians would stop calling us that and stop saying that that's what we're supposed to be. Our troubles began once we assimilated into this system. Once we assimilated, that's when we're called citizens. That's when we're called black. I have to say this again. We know that the civilized tribes were not citizens. They did agree to become federal tribes, though, but they still were not supposed to be dominated. That's why they forced you to take the 14th Amendment in your southern states, y'all. Now, Indians were not so even supposed to be in states, but I'm just saying they made sure they sealed that casket by making you adopt the 14th Amendment. So what now? You are property of the feds, y'all. Not only your indentures, but you as well. That is how I know we didn't create this system because we would not have done that to ourselves. We would not have forced ourselves to take a 14th Amendment, y'all. So, no, we didn't build this system. We didn't. Those who look like us did, and we're being Stepford Indian into thinking that that was us. But your Black European side of the family, when you are sleeping, dreaming of your love between you and your Black European, he's in the basement working 24/7 on how to get rid of all other Indians except you, the beloved one, which when he finished with you, you're not going to even know anything about nothing but his history. I'm going to talk to you again about the wonders of Mali and Somalia. But yet he's genociding all your outside Indians that are uncivilized. They have to be genocided because they're uncivilized. Yet they didn't have slavery. You did, civilized tribes, as we saw at the beginning of this video. So he comes and puts his blood on your hands, and now you do his bidding because he's going to tell, I won't tell that you had slaves. But no, please don't tell. Well, it's all out now. So you can be free, civilized tribes. Aren't you tired of being, blamed for what Black Europeans did? It's because that's what's happening. So let's read this so we can close the video soon, okay? Uh, it is strongly emphasized in the southeast part of the United States. Now, what is strongly emphasized? They're trying to say that there was imposters trying to be Indians, and it was strongly emphasized in the South, where the Cherokee blood is locally of consequence. It is growing in the Southwest, where some tribes have great possessions. So they're saying Cherokees are not pure blood. That's what they're saying, Cherokee, about you. Once they mix with you, right? That's what happens. So let's try to read it again. This last part, but read it together. So they're trying to present a picture where people who are passing for white are also claimed to be Indians, and then they're saying that's really emphasized in the Southeast, where the Cherokee blood is locally of consequence. So if you have Cherokee blood, it's consequential because you're supposed to, be Indians not taxed. See, this article is talking about the conditions of Indians taxed versus Indians not taxed. And they're trying to say these damn Fakians, they trying to avoid being taxed, Indians for revenue. But they supposed to be taxed because they're not pure Indians. But see, what they're not saying is this was more applying to dark-skinned Indians, whereas white Indians could exist. It was the black ones that were reclassified black, right? But again, black is a downgrade while being called white is an upgrade. So even light-skinned Indians might want to be white, but they're saying they want to be Indian. Indians didn't get no big special treatment. So why would they want to be Indians for? Because at one time they were going by the Constitution and Indians were not taxed. So I guess they talk about possessions because they're saying tribes had great possessions, right? So That's why whites wanted to be Cherokee, because Cherokee was of consequence because they had great possessions. Yeah, well, that's why the federal came and took it all. So now they say, do you still want to be Indians? Because we took everything they have. Don't you want to be white now? Well, we know we're going to do with the black full-blood Indians. Indians taxed and Indians not taxed are terms that cannot be rigidly interpreted as Indian citizens. That don't even make sense, y'all. Indians were not citizens until the 14th Amendment, when everything called black was made a citizen, right? But they're getting rid of Indians, right? Because they want to tax that bunch. And the Constitution says you're not supposed to, but also the Constitution says they're not under federal or state. So let's read that again. Indians taxed and Indians not taxed are terms that cannot be rigidly interpreted, as Indian citizens, like white citizens, frequently have nothing to tax. So, well, if Indians are not citizens, they have a lot. They have their land, right? Indians subjected to tax and Indians not subject to tax might more closely express the distinction. Indians' tax has so far become assimilated in the general population that they are not exempt from tax by reason of being, well, they were never exempt. They were Indians not taxed. So they're saying Indians that assimilate can be taxed now. But how did they stop being Indians, y'all? So what do you mean assimilate? No matter how much you assimilate, you still, well, in the case of blacks, they never stop being black even after they assimilated, right? So why do Indians stop being Indians after they assimilate? Indians not taxed are remnants of uncivilized tribes. Bodies of Indians untaxed by reason of specific treaties. This is what we wanted to talk about, y'all. And this is what I believe Dr. Tracy found and why she wanted me to see this. And I thank her abundantly. Indians not taxed are remnants of uncivilized tribes. Who were the uncivilized tribes, guys? Would have been Algonquin, because the civilized tribes speak some form of Iroquois or Muskogee, right? The Lenni Lenape are not as important, because why is that? Why are Lenni Lenape a special kind of Algonquin? And when I say special, not in a good way. Lenni Lenape are not really consequential because of where they're located. But Algonquins who were all over the South, they are the ones that are uncivilized. Once they become civilized, they become Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, Muskogean, Timucuan, Siouan. They become every other Indian but Algonquin. So who were uncivilized were the Algonquin, because the Algonquin's presence is virtually erased from the South. And then they try to say we were only on the coast, but I realized, nope, We were everywhere you see Cherokee is where Algonquins once were because what? Cherokee originally and by their original language and name would have been Algonquin. Just like all the civilized tribes and the Iroquois, the Lenni Lenape maintained their Algonquin basically because they're so far up north that colonizer they want Algonquins to be northern. You see, so that's why they spared the Lenni Lenape because they're trying to show, oh, the Algonquins, they never was in the South. They was in Canada, they Maine. No. So that's why the Lenni Lenape were allowed to exist, y'all. But they were highly infiltrated still because they can't tell their story, right? They're going to be talking like that as if they're part Iroquois, and which they are because as we saw, the creation story that they come up with is different from Algonquin creation story. We saw the Lenni Lenape incorporated the turtle. Original Algonquins didn't have a turtle in their creation story. They had a muskrat. A muskrat is indigenous to America, whereas a turtle is indigenous to Asia, Germany, uh Asia is basically a Mongolian originating creature, the turtle. I'm sorry, turtle is originally like a Mongolian Asian uh creature that migrated or came with the Mongolians to South America. They were not original to South America. But once the Mongolians were all over South America, that's when um, that's when the turtle arrives. That's what we read, y'all. So the Lenni Lenape are allowed to exist in a Moorish framework because the Moors are trying to portray Algonquins as only being from north. But as we deduce, no quote unquote black misclassified Indian is from the north. All Indians come from the south. Algonquins are no different. Algonquins did not originate in Canada. Siberians, maybe. Siberians would have come from the north. Algonquins migrated from the south and they got pushed up north, and then they keep the Lenni Lenape as a little token to sort of try to show or portray again that Algonquins were northern Indians. No, the hell we were not. We were the Southeast Woodland Indians. All of us were Algonquin speaking. It's the oldest language in all of Southeast Woodland area. So no colonizer, you don't get to lie about the origin of Algonquins anymore and have your little token Lenni Lenape to say, oh, see, they're still there, actually. No, they did not originate there. As I said earlier, we found evidence that uh, Powhatan himself came from Florida, y'all. So who got taken over in the South? It was Algonquins. And once they become civilized, now they're known as Cherokee and the five civilized tribes and the Washita and all of that. So that's what we really wanted to see here. One of the things, but let's read it again. Indians not taxed were remnants of uncivilized tribes or bodies of Indians untaxed by reason of specific treaty. Well, they never honored those treaties, and those treaties were bogus. They just say that. I don't know why they keep talking about treaties. I really don't know why when they stop doing them, you know. But let's read again. Indians not taxed are remnants. Okay. Uh okay. Okay. Indians not taxed are remnants of uncivilized tribes. They're not tribes, y'all. They're remnants. What's a remnant? It's something broken off from, right? So the point we're making is that in this article, he's trying to say only a few Indians who had severed their tribal relations and come to live in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate for counting, which means appropriate for taxing. But we're challenging that. What we're saying is when this, first of all, when they severed their tribes, they're still from, if they severed from their tribes, they're still Indians. So they wouldn't be taxed. They shouldn't have been taxed, right? So what we want to say is that no, they were remnants. And this article is saying Indians not taxed, not Indians taxed. He's trying to say that they severed from their tribes and then they became appropriate for counting and taxing, is what he's really saying here. But this article is saying, nope, it's Indians not taxed are those remnants in the states and uncivilized. Because civilized are going to get tax exempt. They're not Indians not taxed. They're going to have a 501c3 exemption, which means they're under federal. But Indians not taxed are not under federal because they're not enumerated and they're not counted for representation or taxation. So they are not federal Indians. So again, we just want to try to bring this point home. Can we highlight it? We'll try. Let's see. Let's see if we can highlight. And these not taxed are remnants of uncivilized. They're not tribes. Okay. Oh, let's just leave it there, right? No, actually, let's leave it here. Indians not taxed are remnants of uncivilized tribes. Point blank, period. So here they're saying only the few Indians who had severed tribal relations and lived in non-Indian communities were treated as appropriate for counting in the constitutionally mandated apportionment. That he's trying to say that those few Indians, they should have been taxed. But this article is saying no, those few Indians are actually Indians not taxed. And they're remnants, they're break-offs from he's saying uncivilized tribes. Okay, yeah. Because the civilized tribes, they're part of the program. So again, we wanted to be clear. And this is the census, a census document itself. This is encyclopedia.com, but they're getting this wrong, whereas I think the Census Bureau is getting it right. Again, only the few Indians who the key thing here is that these are Indians that are not part of tribes. But here they're saying they are appropriate for taxing. But here the our Census Bureau article is saying that these were Indians not taxed who are uh separated from tribes. And they're not taxed. What I'm trying to say, y'all, is once you are a federal tribe, you are subject to taxes. You are subject to being counted. You are subject to enumeration. Only Indians not taxed are not subject to that. So this would be for those Indians who want to no longer be known as federal. Now is the time to do it. You would have to get out of your federal tribe, keep your Indian heritage, because that's what they take away from you when they want to tax you, as we saw in that encyclopedia.com article. But here, the Census Bureau is telling us Indians not taxed. They are the ones that are severed from tribes. They are remnants of uncivilized tribes, because the uncivilized tribes are going to be genocided. They're going to be called black. And then they're going to get taxed as blacks, because now they're going to be confused with the emancipated Negropeans. So remember, we said Indians can only be one of two things, either African slaves or Black European indentures. That's what they want all Indians to be known as, either African slaves or Negropean indentures, both in some form of servitude. Whereas Indians were landowners. Those farms belonged to us. We were head of household, y'all, until, as Dane let us know, the government found a way to make your indenture head of your household and take over your farm. Because what it was is, well, part of it was they were somehow making Indians pay for, somehow Indians became in debt to the federal, which is crazy because the land was ours. But whatever the feds did, it always ended up with us losing land, it seemed. And then they would control land, so they don't have to pay rent. You see, they don't have to acknowledge that we exist once they take our land. They just say, "Oh, that's a Black European," and this is not that wasn't his land. He's Negro, Black African. So this was the big highlight of this article, and because we've kind of gone a while, I'm going to uh, sort of land the plane here. But let's read the whole thing. Indians not taxed are remnants of uncivilized tribes or bodies of Indians. This part is kind of BS because they're not bodies, y'all. You singling us out, okay? And we're in the states without a tribe. So stop trying to say we were bodies. Allotment meant you gave an Indian by himself, not as a group, a plot of land, a small plot of land. Because as a single Indian, he didn't need all the tribe, all the land his tribe had, right? So they like breaking us up. But then when they break us up, now they're trying to say that we're not Indians anymore. Or because we took an allotment, well, that means we could tax you. No, 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 no. This is what Indians have to go back to. This is what has not existed in America ever since they started getting us confused with Black Europeans and Africans. There has not been Indians not taxed in the land or sovereign Indians point blank, period. This is what the awakening is for, to wake up these Indians, the ones who are still known as Black. It's their awakening, not the Indians who took the deal, but those Indians can opt to totally abandon that deal if they want to. There is nothing holding Indians to remain federal. They don't have to, and we Indians as a whole would do better not being federal, because when we're federal, we're controlled by foreigners, Black Europeans, who are making sure that it's only Black Europeans that are really running things, while the Indian ones, they're going to make sure that you just tell all about the Black Europeans side of your family. Oh yeah. See, Yeah, see, laws controlling their relation to the national government as the Six Nations of New York, the Iroquois Confederacy, and the five civilized tribes of Indian territory. They're talking about the South. The Confederate South was brought to their knees when they emancipated Negropeans. I mean, it was white indentures, so we know that they were Negropeans among the indentures. If they were our children, uh, they were once the emancipation came, they were basically seen as slaves. Okay, that's the problem. See, emancipation really is going to turn you into an African slave. That's the goal. But really, they were either Black European or Indians. So it's just confusing. It's but we still that's why it's important to bring an Indian back because it will clear up all the other fakians, you know, the Black Europeans and the Africans or whoever is being stuck in the Indians position. But I'm saying that I don't believe that the indentures were started out as the children of Indians. I just don't know about that. Because the land would go back to your indenture. And if the indenture was your family, then that means the land is still in your family, right? So I'm imagining that most of the indentures were not our family. Or if they were, those are the ones that got called up north or thought it would be, they find a better life up north, or they abandoned. Either way, it just didn't work out for Indians, okay? The system never worked out for Indians, whether they were civilized or uncivilized. Yes, the uncivilized got it worse because they were misclassified, right? But it didn't really work out for civilized Indians either. It really didn't, and it still is not. When you go to those civilized tribes, you're just going to see a lot of Mongolians and whites, and very few, you know, pure Indians. So I think once the pure Indians stand up again, they are the ones that can stand on Indian business, Indian birthright business. I think we're going to close for now. Um, yeah, this it's a longer article, but when I found this, I realized this was very pertinent to what we're talking about. So it's again, Indians not taxed who are the remnants in the states, not Indian tribes. And they are not taxed. Whereas this article from Encyclopedia is saying that these few Indians are appropriate for taxing. No, they're not, unless you're calling them Black. Then they become appropriate for counting. But Indians are never supposed to be taxed. And Indian tribes, they shouldn't be regulated because that's taken away from their Indian not tax standing if they ever had it. I mean, all Indians should have had it, but they did something weird with the tribes where they're only dealing with federal recreations of tribes that are not the original tribes, I would have to say. I think I'm going to, let me see. Yeah, I think I want to close because I know I have other slides. But I think we're going to get to those next time. It's time to take a little break before we have to log on. So I'm going to stop my share. Once again, this is conditions of Indians tax and Indians not tax. What were the conditions? The conditions are Indians not taxed were remnants of uncivilized tribes who got reclassified Black. So the Indians taxed are civilized and recreated federal tribes. So they get taxed, or they are Indians that might have exemptions, but it didn't say that we're tax exempt. It says we're Indians, not taxed, meaning the government has no jurisdiction to even make us exempt because we enter in the picture, not taxed, not under federal or state domination, so therefore not citizens. Indians are never supposed to be citizens, is the message we want to drive home. If they want to be citizens, that's different. But Indians, from what we've seen in history, I'm thinking that there's Indians out there who do not want to be citizens any longer when it's better for them to be landowners as Indians, not taxed, or just American Indians. When you're part of the system, all it can give you is money, fiat money that is really nothing compared to being on the land as an owner and then charging rent to all these entities that should not be here. So on that note, I think we're going to stop the share. I thank you for watching. Uh, till next time, I'm going to have to wish you peace, wealth, health, your land back, your identity back, all the great things. And I'm going to say be and stay highly favored. Thank you again for watching. Till next time.